Hello and welcome to round 6 of the oNiD Sim Hound LMU 100 series powered by Coach Dave Academy, and we are today at a rather soggy Temple of Speed, 11 corners around this absolutely flying Italian circuit. And well, this championship is getting even more interesting as the rounds go on, as we follow James Cowley, who's setting the pace at the start of this qualifying session. But it's the other driver in the other Peugeot, surely, that it has had all the headlines from last time with their pole position and win last time out. So we'll have to see if they can make it back to back here at Monza. But today, as usual, I'm joined by Sam Grant. Sam, how are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Looking forward to a wet Monza. Not too wet, as we were saying before the stream, but a bit damp. So it shouldn't be too challenging for the drivers. And it's nice to have you back, by the way, Tom. Welcome back, obviously, after your little break last week. Plenty of time left in qualifying, by the way. And I wonder, how many drivers are just going to go straight away onto the limit here and not worry about getting a banker lap in.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be important to get a banker lap in here, as you say, because wet weather conditions can be a little bit hazardous, so the drivers need to make sure, you just need to make sure you just get that lap time in, and then you can just start pushing a little bit more, getting a little bit more confident as the session goes on, as Charlie Morgan comes across the line to go up into third. A nice little time there by Charlie Morgan, 1 minute 53.569, as being Zach Silver, Jacob Hine and Angela Scott, as well as speaking of Jacob Hine, there he is coming across the line in 1 minute 43.569 to slot into 5th position. It's currently surely last time out's pole position sitter at the top of the times, followed by Zach Finney and Charlie Morgan in this session. Alfie Bevan quite far off the pace at the moment, 1.8 seconds back from the fastest time in this session. But as we said, it's all about getting that banker in and then pushing on as the clock starts to count down in this session. And as you can see, Jacob Hine is doing exactly that. A purple first sector is up by just over a tenth on Shorley in the first couple of corners as we come through the two Lesmos now in the Alpine. This car's quite strong from my understanding at cornering, so it's going to like this part of the circuit may struggle as we come towards the back straight now. We'll have to wait for Jacob Hine's sector 3, which should be coming up any time soon, and it's currently it's another purple sector. He's up by over a tenth again, but then his first sector's now down by 3 seconds, so I don't know if that's a change or someone's going extraordinarily quicker in the first sector.
Yeah, possibly. Obviously, that kind of updates every time they pass the sector and every time someone else crosses the sector. So, Jacob could be at a lap, and we saw him earlier have purple sector 1, and someone's clearly replaced it. But comes around the final corner now, does Jacob Hine, 3 parabolic, obviously. Will just be wanting to straight line it to the start-finish line there, and obviously not run out too wide on the exit there. Crosses the line, sets a personal best across all sectors there. Goes up to 5th, so on his way for another lap. It's a tricky thing when you come around the last corner here, because sometimes you think, well, set up for another lap, or sometimes you want to get straight to the line and just pedal the meadow and just get it done. As well as obviously Jacob Hine goes on to another lap, and we see Johnny Ashley up in P2 in class as well in the GT3 field. A bit of a recovery from Johnny. In recent kind of races, we've seen him drop off in pace after having a great start to the series, obviously been quick in other series, and seems to have found that pace back again so far tonight in qualifying.
Yeah, we know Johnny obviously loves these wet weather conditions, so obviously suiting his BMW well tonight is going to have to try and find a little bit of time to get towards Christian Kiesig, who has taken, I believe, 3 pole positions so far in this series, and is, what we know from ACC last season, is rather handy in GT3 machinery. But as you say, Johnny actually isn't backing off at all. Purple in the first sector, so is trying to take it to Christian Kiesig, and yeah, we'll have to see what he can do on the remainder of this lap coming out of the second Lesbo now. Zach Finney up onto pole position, a 1 minute 43.124, fastest of anyone by just over 3 tenths of Ben Shorley. Angela Scott back up into 3rd position as Nick Manders now slots into 4th. So nice mix of manufacturers, 4 different manufacturers in the top 5 at the moment, and the Porsches looking like they're going well, with 2 of them slotted in 3rd and 4th as we follow Nick Manders out of the first couple of corners as he starts well, another flying lap time, but it's actually a really good lap time here. Just no one else really seems to be getting too near him at the moment.
No, exactly, yeah. Does have a nice little gap, few 4 tenths or so, 3-4 tenths in the gap there. But, you know, similarly, Christian Kiesig, the GT3 field, as ever, a massive buffer between him and P2 Athel Baskar, obviously in class. A second and 3 tenths is the gap there for the GT3 field. So, yeah, it's a bit of a interesting one. Obviously, after that, it's really, really close. You know, we can see their Vest less than a tenth, sorry, off of Baskar. And, you know, same thing again down to Ashley. And up in the hypercar fields are really, really close, bar the current pole sitters as Nick Manders takes his way tentatively, I must say, through Ascari there.
It does look a little bit nervous at the rear end. Now he's able to get back onto the para again as he comes up towards the parabolica. I just want to turn our attention to Baskar having a great overall on its season so far. He's currently 4th in the GT3 Festival Series on 263 points. There's a big lock up there for Nick Manders coming into the parabolica. That's going to have dragged him wide and taken a little bit of momentum off of his lap as, yeah, boy, I can see oNiD Aiden just resubscribed for 19 months in a row. Thank you very much, Aiden, for resubscribing as Nick Manders comes across the line and resets. That was not an improvement in the end. Lost a lot in the final sector. Going back to Athel Baskar, as he's so 4th in the GT3 Festival, currently sits as well at the top of the championship. It's a big spin there for Ralph Fest coming out of Ascari. I assume too much curb there. Sorry, I was looking down at my notes.
Yeah, no, just I think I didn't see him take too much curb. I just kind of lost it, I suppose, in the wet, just trying to carry a bit too much speed through the exit of Ascari. And obviously, we had a new tyre model for the GT3s recently, so, you know, just getting used to the amount of speed you can carry through these corners, then trying to do that in the wet as well. So it's going to be a few of those I think we're going to see tonight. You know, Ascari is a funny one because you can carry a lot of speed through it, and sometimes that's deceptive because you're able to carry that grip and then, you know, suddenly you often get spat off. So it's good that the drivers are learning that in qualifying and you know, not the race.
Yannick looking rather tentative around the final corner, taking it nice and smoothly up towards the start finish line. He's currently up on his own personal best in the first and second sectors, and actually purple in the end as he comes across the line and moves himself up into second position. Is still 8 tenths back from Christian Kiesig in the end, who's absolutely flying in that Porsche, and well, as he always is, and is looking for his 4th pole position of the season. There's Angela Scott, and that is a fantastic time as well, and was so close to Zach Finney in the end. Was only as they actually cut the first chicane there as they come through the first couple of corners, but it was only 60 thousandths off of Zach Finney in the end. Really, really close there by Angela Scott, and a phenomenal time in the end, looking for their first win of the season, and it has been very consistently been finishing inside the top 3 over this championship. Won't have time, well, this will be kind of a rebuild lap up to another flying lap at the end of this one, but only a little bit of time for them to find to try and steal away the pole position from the Toyota. But also you've got Ben Shawley, Alfie Bevan, also one that you can't be counting out at this stage of the qualifying session as well. And Nick Manders seems to be in good form as well, and is also running in a Porsche, and as Angela Scott showed, it is a quick car here as we come back to Nick, who's currently at the start of their lap, just coming up towards Curva Grande now as they turn, well, very gently rightwards into the corner as they come onto a flying lap. We'll see what their first sector is. They're coming up towards turns 4 and 5. Rogia as they come in now, currently off their own time by 0.184, so only down by a little bit, so we'll be looking to improve in the middle sector as we come around the parabolica now. Anton Temenga now currently sits in 6th position, and this is their out lap, so this will be them coming on to their flying lap, I believe, as they come across the line. Now there you go, the timer has begun for them, running in the Ford Mustang, and I believe actually as well, I'm not sure if it was last time out of time, actually I think it was at Imola, got a podium for themselves. So has been in decent form from the last 2 rounds, as Ben Shorley currently still sits in 3rd position. Was that an improvement over their last lap, or is this their first flying lap back out on circuit?
No, so last lap moved up 1 position, just ahead of Alfie Bevan. And when I say just ahead, look at the gap there. I literally mean just ahead of Alfie Bevan. Bevan themselves obviously on circuit at the moment, so obviously looking to respond. Although I think, judging by the lack of sector time, I think maybe invalidated somewhere in the first sector there, as we're obviously not showing it. But still plenty of time really to get around quickly and get it done. Obviously 1 minute and 50 left, 1 minute and 43, say 44 is the times, the hypercar, the lap times for the hypercar. So 1 more lap potentially on the cars for Alfie Bevan if he gets it all tidy until the final corner, obviously. So we'll have time to respond. But let's quickly go back to Menga, I believe, who improves in the first sector there by a 10th on his personal. Oh, sorry, improves in the first sector on the personal best, is a 10th off for a purple sector 1. So really close. He's really pushing is to Menga. Let's go on board as he approaches Ascari then. Oh, sorry. I don't. We are at Ascari.
Yeah,
yes.
He's a lot more confident than the hypercars through there. He was able to take a lot more of that left-hand curve as they came up into the back straight.
Yeah, definitely.
And now as they come up towards the 50 board just before, jumps on the brakes, tries to turn the car in, struggling for front end grip, but eventually is able to turn the big Mustang into the corner. As you can see, is able to apply the full throttle as they come up towards the start finish straight now. Was down in the middle sector by quite a bit in the end, and I think actually does move up into 6th position. Actually no, it was 1 minute 57, so actually no, it was an improvement. Or was it an improvement? I'm getting confused.
No, it was an improvement. There is a little bug at the moment as well. So when they cross the line, it shows purple sectors when that isn't true. So there is that tiny little bug. But yeah, currently resides in 6th. But on his way, I say that, he pulls over, he stops, he's had enough. Not quite, where I think he'd want to be to make. We've seen again be a fairly quick driver. But choosing again to pull over in that final lap there, maybe not enough fuel, maybe thinking that's all they've got tonight. Available in under their foot.
As we come to Alfie Bevan now, just coming on their final flying lap of this session. But I noticed no sector type, so does that mean that he's invalidated somewhere?
Yeah, it certainly looks that way. So we'll have to have a look. Maybe it's someone else, Nick Manders. Let's see where he is. I think he's also... Oh no, there is a sector as he comes up towards the chicane here.
And that's good. It's currently up. He's currently 2 tenths off of Zach Finney's fastest, but it hasn't set themselves a green sector in the number 4 Penske Motorsports liveried Porsche. Now coming through the parabolicas, will get on the brakes now, turns the car in to come up towards the tunnel section part of the circuit where they go under the old oval section of Spa. Obviously the next corner coming up will be Ascari, so he will come up right towards the Marshall Hut on the right hand side here and jump onto the brakes now as he comes under the Michelin Man, turns the car in, very slidey at the rear end. I think as we noticed as well, and very twitchy, very skittish through Ascari. Really seems to be trying to fight the car so it faces in the right direction through that part of the circuit and is down in that sector, and actually I think has realised that it's not going to be improvement because comes onto the brakes and will reset to the pit lane, and that means that Nick Manders will have to settle for a 6th place start as Zach Dilber has moved his Cadillac up inside the top 5. So a great time from himself as well. Only good enough for James Cowley to finish in 8th position in the end. It didn't improve on their fastest lap time, I don't think, in the end, as Alex Parker now currently sits in 9th. It's yellow first and middle sectors, so it's going to need something special from the last sector to try and move themselves up further into the GT3 field, but it looks like they have decided to come into the pit lane as well at the end of this qualifying session. And is that all the drivers that we have on circuit?
It is, yeah. And with that, let's have a look then at the starting order before they all get lined up on the grid, shall we?
Yes, I think we shall. So your starting order, pole position goes to Zach Finney in the Toyota. In second position is Angela Scott. Then we come to 3rd position is Ben Shorley. 4th is Alfie Bevan. On row 3, we have Zach Silver starting in 5th, and 6th position is Nick Manders. On row 4 is the Proton liveried Porsche of Runa Bertolson, and in 8th place, James Cowley in the Peugeot. Row 5 is Charlie Morgan and Max Savchuk with a lockout of the Team Penske liveried cars. Then as we go to row 6, is the first of the GT3s with Christian Kiesig on pole position, followed by Petty Jelinek. Then on row 7, lining up on 3rd is Atul Bhaskar, and then in 4th is Ralph Vest in the Corvette. Then on row 8 is Johnny Ashley in the BMW and Aton Temenga in the Ford Mustang. Then if we move to row 9, it's Dmitro Yaroshenko in the Ferrari, and then it's Mateusz Fusgen in the other Ferrari. Then on row 10, it's another Ferrari with Alex Parkin, and then in 20th position is Tim Bobb in the first in the McLarens. Row 11th is Richard Mazan in the Porsche and Dave Shalecki in the McLaren. Then on row 12 is another Ford Mustang of Greg Prescott, and Jacob Hines starts at the back of the field in by the looks of things as well, which is a bit of a puzzle. I'm sure he got a lap time in, or is there?
Yeah, that is an interesting one. Jacob Hines,
I think that's him there. Yeah, there he is.
At the back of the hypercar field. Again, a bit of an interesting, maybe one of those bugs that have been going around. There are a few of them, obviously, since the kind of major update recently. So, an odd one.
Yeah, but obviously, as you can see on our screens now, Jacob Hine will be starting at the back of the hypercar field, which will be led by Zach Finney and Angela Scott as we wait for our cars to start. Well, half of their formation lappers, they'll be moving away from the back straight around the parabolica, and then we'll be underway with racing. We've got 13 seconds, 12 seconds, now 10 seconds to go until the start of the formation lap. But I can see on the track map some cars still in the pit lane, as actually, there we go, our last GT3 has made their way onto the starting grid, and now we should get starting orders for the start of this race. So there we go, Zach Finney gets to the Toyota underway, followed by Angela Scott in the special liveried Team Penske Porsche, followed by Ben Shawley in the Peugeot, and Alfie Bevins, two drivers you probably wouldn't want behind you, as we know their pace so far this season. So it's going to be an interesting one here as well. Obviously, wet weather conditions. We haven't really seen too many offs in the qualifying session, but I mean, it's always hazardous, and I think here at Monza as well, especially that turn 1 wet weather conditions, you are coming into it flat out as well. Could see a few lockups and a few people kind of tripping over one another as well. But if you are only just joining us, this is the oNiD Sim Hound LMU 100 series powered by Coach Dave, and this is round 6 of the championship. Alfie Bevins currently leads the way from James Cowley in this series, but we have seen Ben Shawley come into this championship and kind of turn it on its head. So as we get underway with racing, it's not a great start from the Toyota of Zach Finney. He seems to be losing out to Angela Scott, and it seems to, of course, the Constantina effect in the background. We have 3 wide with Zach Silver on the inside, trying to go for the race lead as well. It's kind of half on the grass as they come into the first braking zone, as they all turn in, and contact in the background. There's rear wing's gone. I believe that is the Peugeot Ben Shawley that's lost his rear wing. Somehow, from all of that, Zach Silver has moved up into 2nd position from that start, and I think that is the only change. Angela Scott now 6th in 3rd. Ben Shawley, oh no, big accident, the 2 Peugeots come together, and Jacob Hine involved in it as well. 2 of the Team Penske Porsche, Max Savchuk involved as well. The GT3 field somehow finding its way through all of this. The Jacob Hine seems to have rear end damage. That car is certainly crabbing along the outside of the circuit. Yellow flags out on track. It seems to have not interrupted the GT order too much, as it's Bhaskar now in 2nd, Johnny Ashley 6th in 3rd, and it's 2 big runners out at the start. But maybe Ben didn't realise that potentially that his rear wing had gone, so lost it as he came into that section of the circuit. But I'm not really sure. There's a lot of scenarios, and it all happened quite quickly.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what are you to do as well? You know, even if you notice that rear wing going, you're not going to suddenly get on the brakes with a pack of cars behind you. You are trying to kind of feather it through Cover Grande, which is a mega challenge to do, and obviously we saw how it all worked out. 4 cars down the order now massively into the GT2 field from the hypercar field, sorry, and obviously we saw many other little incidents as well. Here's Athabasca on the back of Christian Kiesig, putting the pressure on at the beginning of the race here while he can. Obviously, whilst everything else is unfolding, the GT3 field obviously trying to get through without picking up their own damage. The BMW flicks to the outside of the Porsche. The Porsche maybe with damage there, it seems, just kind of limping along down the back straight towards Parabolic, or maybe this is Kiesig setting up for the long game and you know, preparing fuel and tyres and everything else, and letting the BMW go as we see a hypercar for Runar Potovzin there. Also eventually lapped the BMW GT3 car.
As we come to the back to the leading couple of cars, and it is now Zach Silver sitting in second position from Zach Finney. We'll come back to the GT3s. Johnny Ashley currently sits in third position in that class, followed by Ralphus as well. We've got Tim Bob and Anton Temenga running side by side into turn one. It's the Mustang trying to, well, they'll have the inside line, but it will be Tim Bob. If he can stay around the outside, they'll have the inside for the next section, but actually in the end it looks like Anton Temenga is going to go through and pass. But now they've got to deal with Max Savchuk, who seems to have not come in the pit lane after accident. You can see there is damage to the front end of that car, and look at all of this spray. You can hardly see in front of you, and that is the issue for Max Savchuk, because he's kind of heading into a cloud of smoke. He's trying to figure out where are the GT3 cars. They seem to be everywhere, but I can't actually see them. As bigger for Tim Bob in the background as well. Tim Bob's going to cut the chicane in the end as well, so that I think he's gained a position in the end, but he's running through the gravel, so I think Anton Temenga should gain it back. But that's going to be some issues for some cars running behind, because in the spray they're going to have to try and keep an eye out for that McLaren rejoining the circuit. I think everyone's been able to maneuver themselves past safely, as Richard Mazan seems to have come off there. Actually, Dave Chalecki in the background is off at the first parabolica as well, skipping across the gravel as he rejoins the circuit. And well, Richard Mazan seems to have carried on fine, but here we come back to the front of the field. Angela Scott seems to have lost out on this lap, because it seems Alfie Bevan just has the pace and has got past, and now will set their sights onto the number 3, well, I was going to say for Mustang, Cadillac of Zach Silver. So it's currently Zach 1-2 at the moment, then Alfie in third, and we'll have to see if Scotty is able to bring any sort of fight back to the Ferrari driver. But we do know the pace that well, that Ferrari has had all this season, and currently well, Alfie in a really good spot for the championship, because on drop rounds, if you eliminate their two worst rounds, James Cowley and Alfie Bevan were on the same points in this championship. But surely after this one today, it will mean that as things currently stand with the drop rounds, it will be Alfie Bevan's undoubtedly leading the championship, as Angela's got a big sideways moment there as they came into turn 4, but was able to gather it up in the end and actually turns the car into the first Lesmo as well, and it seems like they are able to get on. But that Porsche, well, I mean the Porsches in this field seem to be struggling with rear end grip so far in this race and in the earlier qualifying sessions as well, and I just don't seem to have the confidence around some of these corners that the Ferraris, Cadillacs and the Toyotas do, and well, formerly the Peugeots did before they dropped back through this field. As we come back to another GT3 battle now, Greg Scott trying to go around the outside of Curva Grande, but Alex Parkin obviously taking that shorter inside line, does have the momentum, but it takes a little bit of a cheeky slipstream there. Does Greg Prescott closes up under braking, a little bit too close under braking, Greg, as he taps the Ferrari in the rear. Luckily not a big enough substantial hit to unsettle either two of the cars as they continue fighting into the first of the Lesmo corners. Currently Alex Parkin, we do know he's a very strong defensive driver, knows how to park that car on the apex and make it tricky for drivers to get past, as Zach Finney comes across the line. Still 1 hour and 34 minutes of racing to go, and he has a 2-second lead to Zach Silver. This is going to get confusing at some point, because I surely will mix one of them up at some stage. But as they run side by side, Greg Prescott seems to have the legs on Alex Parkin as they come up towards the first section of Ascari. They'll break by that orange painting on the barrier, and it seems that the best of the late breakers in the end was Greg Prescott. Then around the outside and has the move done by the apex of the corner, and actually has already created about 3/10 gap. So Alex Parkin, all big off for Richard Mazdan. It's spun to the inside of the back straight there, gone straight into the tyre. Well, let's have a look what's happened here.
Yeah, let's have a little look. I mean, we're seeing little slides here and there, but for Richard Mazan, it was a bit more than a slide, I think, as he comes through Ascari onto the curbs. Very brave, obviously. Comes through the final part here. Takes just a bit too much to the inside, I think. Unsettles the rear, and we see this all too often at Imola. You know, just that lock onto that wall, if you like, after coming through Ascari. Then big damage as well, it looks like.
Yeah, and also speaking of big damage, I think we missed this in the carnage at the start of the race, but Petr Jelinek is out. It wasn't so long a race at all. Engine Red I had to retire, unfortunately. So Petr Jelinek out of this one as well after a decent qualifying session in the GT3 class. As it's parking, it's pushing Greg Prescott through the corner. There was really sitting under the diffuser of the Ford Mustang, and actually in the end, because he was so close to the rear of Craig Prescott, it has compromised his entry onto but towards the Curva Grande, and that does mean Dave Schlecki is now going to have an opportunity as they come up towards turns 4 and 5 now, but decides not to go up the inside. It's probably a decent choice there of what to do. It's still early stages of this race, can be a very tight parts of this circuit. It can be hard to overtake here, so don't want to be too aggressive at this part of the race as these guys all cycle through again as the recovering Jacob Hein finally makes his way to the back of the field and moves up past these back runners in the GT3 class as he'll make his way past Greg Prescott now and should have at least for a while, a clean bit of circuit as the next cars are just entering Ascari. So looking up the inside, going to the outside is Dave Schlecki, and actually Alex has let him have that move, and that will move Dave Schlecki up into 17th position overall in this race. No, it won't, because he's sideways on the exterior of Ascari. It's anchor planed the inside of the circuit. It's been able to keep out the wall, I think, in the end there, but a big mistake from Dave, and it does mean that drops him back to the to the back of the GT3 field. So a little bit gutting there after getting the move done for Dave Schlecki as we come back to the top of the GT3 class, and Christian Kiesig's off. He spun it, he's got straight on at least at turns 4 and 5, and it has lost him the race lead.
Yeah, let's have a little look again at that Porsche. Christian Kiesig, so strong, so dominant typically on circuit, a rare mistake. Let's see how it happened. Loses the rear coming through the second chicane. I forgot what it's called. Unfortunately,
Del Roger,
indeed. Yes, yeah, just loses the rear. It's a rare error. Just the car just wouldn't stop, kind of slowly drifting out there from underneath him, down in 11th in class. But also has showing to do stopped once as well in the pit, so maybe recovering from some damage or an earlier incident that we also missed.
Yeah, so Christian Kiesig now in class is, actually right at the back of it, is falling behind Dave Schlecki. It's a bit of a mistake there from Zach Finney, and that's allowed, not Zach Finney, I knew I said I was going to do it, Zach Silver, and he's actually dropping really far through this order. Was formerly second in this race, but has dropped that set forward again, Cadillac to 5th position. Nick Vander's just making their way past as well. That means that Angela Scott back up into 3rd position, into the podium positions in class. It puts Alfie Berman's up 2 positions at the start of this race, and actually puts Zach Silver back to where he qualifies. So maybe just didn't have the pace to run with some of these top runners, and the sole Cadillac in this race as well. So may just be that the car isn't suited as well to this circuit, and actually is struggling again off of the second leftmost, 2 tries into the gravel, and that's going to put him under pressure now from Charlie Morgan in another Team Penske liveried Porsche. So we'll have to see if he's anywhere near. He's not, as Charlie Morgan moves in onto the clearer part of the circuit just so he can get a good look of whereabouts Zach Silver is. But Zach really struggling at this point in the race. As you can see, the Porsche again through Ascari seems a lot more comfortable, and that Cadillac is really snapping all over the road in front of him. Just doesn't seem to have any sort of grip, front end or rear end in that car, especially for Ascari there. You can see he was really drifting it through that part of the circuit. Now coming to the brain zone now, you have to just see how Zach Silver drives it through here. He could have damage. I don't want to say that, but just seems to be really struggling at this point in the race to get that rear end power down. You can see again coming out of the parabolica there, just isn't able to get the power on because the rear end is just spinning up on him and twitching that rear end all over the place as they come into the first braking zone again now. Charlie Morgan looking to the inside, decides against it in the end, so they will continue on where they were in this race, currently 6th and 5th position, as Zach Silver has been able to negotiate that curve a lot better. As you can see, Petr Mazan actually out this race, and Ben Shawley out of this one as well from our early retirements after a big accident. James Cowley has continued on, currently running in 20th position, trying to find his way to the back of the GT3 field to kickstart his recovery drive. But Charlie Morgan still stuck behind Zach Silver at this point in the race. Silver seeming to it's a little bit more settled in. The car doesn't seem to be fighting him as much as it was a few moments ago, as we can barely see him through the spray on the circuit at this part of the race. The sun is out. You can see very bright sky, well, not bright sky, but you can see the brightness of the sun on the circuit as they'll come in spraying zone now. And it seems Silver just been able to pick up the pace again. That has opened up that gap ever so slightly. This is where he seems to be struggling on the entry of this section of the circuit, but no, it seems a lot more stable, does that Cadillac now, as he comes up towards the Parabolica.
Yeah, and then just look at the spray. I mean, it's such a challenge, you know, and obviously everyone's driving so confidently, even though there's a car in front of them, because the car in front of them, in theory, is moving away from them in the same kind of speed they're heading towards them. But here comes GT2 traffic to make it even more interesting, because Charlie, like some other drivers, well, maybe not Charlie in this instance, but other drivers, we've heard them lifting off, you know, when there's traffic around them. They can't quite see what that is, but choosing to just come out the way of the hypercar ahead is Morgan in this instance to see where the braking boards are. And, you know, that means you're not using the slip geometry advantage when you can, if you're trying to get out of the spray and actually see where you're going. Obviously, we have the advantage of just being able to click this button and see a bit more. See a little bit more. But it is terribly awful, the spray, for the drivers. And, you know, it's not even totally wet out there. You know, the track on average is only about 40% wet. There's a lot more room for the track to become worse. I think the rain is only mild, though, to be very 9-10% rain at the moment, so it's not awful. There is room for it to be worse, but yeah, the spray is just, what a challenge these drivers have to deal with. And I think this is the first of it we've seen through this series. I can't remember we've had another race that's been wet before, or at least not in the day either, because obviously the sun just adding another element of just blowing out, you know, adding the exposure the drivers have to deal with. As Charlie makes a little bit of error there through the second Lesmo, going a bit wide onto the gravel. That will definitely compromise his run in the Porsche towards Zach Silver and the Cadillac obviously just ahead, as they kind of continue their battle really in this kind of stalemate, you know, as they wait for the clock to tick down and wait for other drivers to blink and maybe dart into the pits. And that's one thing as well we haven't mentioned, Tom. Obviously in this series, 100-minute race, drivers have to pit typically, obviously. That means fuel. That sometimes means tyres. It sometimes means repairing the damage. In this instance, when it's wet and it's raining, obviously the fuel, I'm guessing they're going to be using less fuel. They're going to be using the tyres less. I don't know if these wet tyres can go the total duration. I'm not that familiar with them. And I don't know how long the tanks will last in these conditions either, but certainly, you know, plenty of unknowns the drivers are going to have to deal with as well tonight.
And I don't know how much room we've had in the overseas. I know we had wet weather conditions at Fuji in the GT3 Festival series, so some of the drivers from that series may be familiar with the rain on this game, or obviously the rain may have been used in various other championships that we've done over this season. But yeah, no, it does create a lot of questions, and we'll probably see a lot of split strategies throughout. If there wasn't already a lot of split strategies usually in this championship, but especially with the wet weather conditions, you say so many unknowns for our drivers, and yeah, it was, and for us as well. I think it's going to create some interesting scenarios, and obviously as well, with it still being kind of a newish simulator to us as well, we have seen a few little mistakes from drivers under fueling their cars, or just kind of wrong strategy calls as well. So I think there is going to be a lot of irregular strategy happening throughout this race as we see them coming through the spray now. And actually, that's something I wanted to say when you were talking about the spray earlier as well. Compared to other circuits as well, this is kind of a traditional racing circuit, which does mean that it's a little bit tricky to overtake, because it can be a little bit tight. There's obviously no tarmac runoff around some parts of the circuit. As we can see now, it is just kind of tarmac, then just grass on the outside of the circuit. And as this circuit is quite a tight one, with a minimum width of 10 metres and a max width of 12 metres on some parts of the circuit, it does make it a little bit interesting for our hypercars to try and lap these GT3 cars without making contact with them, because it does mean at some stages, as you say, they do have to let off. they do have to kind of think about where the duty-free cars are. And the issue is that, as we saw in the Nürburgring 24-hour this weekend, if drivers start to get a little bit too aggressive, a little bit too under pressure, and start making split-second decisions, it can mean that they can make contact with the cars in the slower class, and it can lead to some errors as well. So the spray is, even though it's obviously a different scenario to the Nürburgring 24 hours, the spray is going to create a lot of issues for some of our leading runners in this race.
Yeah, certainly. And from what I can see on my little timing screen, in some places the track is apparently 0% wet, so dry, which obviously adds a little bit of an added challenge when you're trying to balance out keeping the tyres in good position as the Mustang of Semenga slides through Lesmo 1, by the way, and you're just dealing with that grip. But very interesting there. A lot of drivers seem to be fairly comfortable in these conditions, obviously pressing on, setting good lap times, and picking out some battles where they can. Alfie Bevan with the fastest lap time, by the way, on that subject, 7/10 quicker than Zach Finney, and last lap was 6/10 quicker than Zach Finney. Obviously the gap at the moment between P1, P2, Finney and Bevan is now just under 3 seconds and closing rapidly, so maybe we'll see a battle for the hypercar lead in a number of laps, really.
And as you say, if it's a dry circuit, maybe Alfie a lot more confident in the dry conditions, and is able to drive with a little bit more confidence than he is in the wet. And well, maybe that's what's coming in, because yeah, as you say, the gap is starting to come down quite considerably between the pair of them. It's kind of fluctuating at the moment between 2.7 seconds and 3 seconds as the lap count down. But obviously Zach will be in Alfie's sights, and I think Alfie, with obviously fellow championship runners around them struggling, will want a decent result at this round to kind of put a foothold, a stranglehold to say, on this championship. So it's with a second, I think you'd be doing that enough anyway, but a first would surely solidify that. And losing a little bit out there through Del Rogier as he's kind of goes back up to be above 3 seconds back from Zach Finney. So maybe Finney, just trying to manage this race at the front, realizes Alfie's speeding up, so he's trying to kind of push a little bit more himself, leaving in that little bit extra in the tank, so that he's kind of able to, well, when Alfie does catch up, he's able to turn up the power a little bit, turn up his race pace a little bit, and try and move away from the second placed person. As we come back to Ralph Best, who's had a off, but just he comes through Curva Grande. I think that's Temenga running up behind, so we'll see what Ralph is having to pull. Ralph comes into the braking zone. The Mustang's far enough back. It gets through the first chicane, takes a lot of second chicane, and just spins up the rear tyres. We know how slidey that Corvette can be, and it just seems that Ralph Best has just been caught out there on the exit of Del Rogier.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. It was a funny one because the Corvette almost looked slow going into Della Roggia there on that first part, and accidentally just maybe lit up the rear getting going again on the second part. I'm sure as he launches himself over the exit curb of Ascari there. But as you say, yeah, Temenga and the Mustang flying ahead now up to third, up 3 places from the start in class, obviously. So doing a great job so far. And similarly, Johnny Ashley, great advantage at the start there, up to second. Athabasca we can see in first place as well. So really drivers just pressing their advantage and capitalising on any opportunity they had earlier on the race, and now just setting good consistent laps and just getting into that rhythm and letting the laps count down and the clock tick down and staying safe on track, it seems, so far. Yaroshenko.
I was going to say that if he stays where he is, Johnny, currently, that will match his best result of the season so far, the second place finishing class. He's got a pretty good lap time under his belt, pretty good pace under his belt, so I don't see him losing that anytime soon, unless he has an issue or a slower pit stop or gets the strategy wrong. Cough again, cough. But for now, Yaroshenko catching up to Temenga. Ferrari on Mustang. Do you know what? For once, I'm going to put my money on the Mustang in this battle. I mean, they're both very quick drivers, kind of both have podiums so far in this series. As I now can't find the bit, there it is. Because I think Dmitry Yaroshenko has a podium in this series, has a third place finish in this series as well, and Anton Semenga's best result is a third place in this series as well. So both are drivers that have pace over a race day to be able to finish on the podium. So both of them have good pace in their own right. So yeah, I think either way, this this should be a good battle between the pair of them.
Yeah, certainly will be a good battle. Against drivers and against manufacturers as well. It'll be very interesting with the mid-engine 296, the ever-agile mid-engine 296, and the Mustang, the front engine support, the grunt in a straight line, just brute forcing its way through the moist moist air at Monza right now. It's great stuff. Alex Parker, by the way, an issue into the wall outside of Ascari. Let's have a look what happened.
So here we go, up towards the Ascari. He's going to come under the Michelin bridge now, where the oval used to be. We'll come into the braking zone, and it seems to be all fine through here. I assume it's going to be a little bit offline here. It's taking a lot of the green on the inside and catches the sausage curb. That bottoms the car out. And yeah, in these wet weather conditions, there's no braking before that outside wall of the Ascari, and a heavy front end contact with that. Alex Parkin, as you can see, still parked there, so maybe struggling with some sort of damage, and all that could have been big for Max Sapchuk. Went for a puddle there. You can see the rear end tried to escape from him there, but luckily was able to save the car before it speared across the circuit there, and was millimeters away from the grass as well. So full send from Max Sapchuk, who's trying to make their way back up through this order. Is currently now in 8th position in class. So Jacob Heim, another driver that's trying to make their way back up through this field, it's got past Mazdan, but is still running in 21st position and behind a lot of the GT3 cars still running in this race as well. And there's obviously got to chase James Cowley as well, who's the next hypercar up the road from him. Only has 2 GT3s between them, but has quite a large gap to try and find this Jacob Hine after being involved in that big accident we saw at the start of this race, which took out Ben Shawley, Petty Jelinek, and a few other of our competitors, including Jacob Hine and James Cowley.
Yeah, indeed. Yevchenko right on the back of Semenga now, by the way, as they approach Parabolica. Pulls to the outside, goes the Ferrari, obviously the Porsche hypercar getting clear out the way by now. So Mustang just continues business as usual. A couple different lines, a couple different approaches. Let's see who benefits from it as they get onto the start finish straight. The Ferrari just onto the inside there, now alongside with the Mustang. Obviously Mustang taking a different line there. Ferrari getting on the power sooner allows them to get on the power earlier. But let's see who's got the top ends now. Obviously the acceleration won by the Ferrari, side by side they go towards the braking zone. They cross the start finish line. Let's see then who's braver as well onto the brakes. Looks fairly even at this point, but I think the Ferrari just has an edge. Will the Mustang swoop around the outside though as the corner tightens? No, the Mustang gets covered up by the 296 of Domenga, of Yaroshenko. Able to get a great job done there right to the end. It wasn't obviously clear and settled until they were halfway through the first chicane.
Yeah, and I think Anton Semenga has spun the car around. There you go, he has got it facing the right direction in the end there. We'll go to a replay. So as you can see, Anton Semenga, Dmitry Yaroshenko on the inside, looked to have the move done, and Anton Semenga trying to get there, but just applied the power too early and a little half spin, and is able to create the car so it faces again in the right direction, but it was just a little bit too eager to get on that throttle to try and take the move back away from Dmitry Yaroshenko, but in the end is going to have to settle for losing that position and may even fall further down, because now Ralph Vest is back in this battle as well, and it's still struggling with Romain Grippo with that Corvette as he gets all sorts of twitchy out of the second Lesmo there, but he's able to keep it somehow facing in the right direction. He's really kind of struggled. I think that car is just incredibly slidey at the best of times, and Ralph Vest is trying to do his best over the season to try and tame it, and he's doing a decent job here as he's currently trying to fight for 5th position in the GT3 standings as it stands, but has 1.1 seconds to try and find to Anton Semenga, who's up the road from them, and a lot of kind of spacing out between our battles now. This is probably actually our closest one on circuit as things currently stand. stand, the front of the field, it seems that Zach Finney did have that extra pace I was speaking about earlier to try and just turn up the temperature, and has been able to keep Alfie about a 3.5 seconds behind at the front of the field. Angela Scott falling back from Bevins as well, is now 8 seconds back from him, and Nick Manners 2 seconds back from Angela Scott as well. So yeah, we're kind of entered a bit of a slow point of this race by the looks of it, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, slow point for us, but for the drivers, I'm sure they'll be, relishing this, loving this stage, really, because the cars are all separated. There's less spray, there's less pressure of dealing with all the cars around them. They could do two things. They can obviously focus on their lap time and get into that rhythm and close up to the driver ahead. They can also kind of, re-look at their situation, if you like, and go, okay, well, I've got enough fuel to go to this point now. I can look at that. I've got time. I've got the capacity to look at this. Okay, my tyres are fine. Vertical energy is this, that, and the other. So-and-so is behind me. I'm pulling away from them. So they've got time now to reassess the situation without having to defend and get the perfect exit from a corner to hold on to P4 or whatever it may be. So actually, it's a pretty good point for the drivers. It's an hour and 12 to go, an hour and 13 to go. I think we usually see the first kind of stops, if you like, the schedule stops between, I think, 50 minutes to go and an hour and 10, something like that, I think. And that's where the difference of strategies come in. Sometimes I think we see drivers wait, as long as they can, and doing a little splash and dash at the end as well. So it will be interesting to see what the drivers come up with tonight in the wet. But obviously Monza as well, lots of straight, lots of fuel usage in the dry, obviously in the wet. Still the case, just slightly more reduced, but there is certainly going to be a high fuel consumption on these cars, and similarly high vertical energy. And another thing with the vertical energy, obviously, tricky track to manage that, because obviously the hypercars, sorry, not vertical energy, normal energy, the battery energy, hypercars, they don't want to let it get empty. They don't want to let the battery get full, because it obviously affects the balance and the braking of the car. So they're constantly, tweaking the recharge rate, the consumption rate, that kind of stuff, to ensure they're in, a nice window that they don't have to worry about that for so long. So another thing to manage and to think about. And now you're in the spot again. You can look at that situation and reconsider the car's configuration. I'm sure the drivers will enjoy a little bit of a breather for now, as Ralph Vest, as you say, approaches Temenga after Temenga's kind of half spin, really coming out the first chicane. Great save, by the way, from him, as the Corvette has a little bit of a wiggle there as well, and obviously lets the Ferrari hypercar go as well.
I think that's why Zach Finney will obviously be leading this race is in such an advantageous position, because he can kind of decide what he does with his strategy at the moment quite easily, because he's able to just manage this race, control what he wants to do, and then when he needs to react when Alfie's a little bit faster, he can do that. So it's it's really the ball's in his park at this point of the race, and it's going to be, we know how talented Alfie is as a driver, just quick in any simulator you put him in, but really Zach Finney seems to really be the one with all the cards at this point in the race. As we've come back to someone that did have all the cards, but it's kind of sadly they've been blown out his hand, is Christian Kiesig trying to make his way back up through the GT3 order after a little off in the earlier parts in this race. He's currently found his way to the back of the GT3 field with Dave Shalecki, as though he would be looking to try and make his way up on past as quick as possible in order to, kind of minimise the damage of his earlier mistakes. So as we come up to Del Roggia here, we're just exiting Curva Grande. Is he going to look for a move? He's kind of thinking about going to the outside. Dave obviously covers that off, and it is still a little bit too far back for the Porsche driver to try and get a move done. He's going to get a much better drive though out of Del Roggia, and actually by the first of the Les Mar, I think he's going to have the inside and probably will be through, as long as he's able to keep it on the circuit, and it does indeed look like that is how that has planned out. So there we go, through up position goes Christian Kiesig. It wasn't too much of a challenge for himself in the end, and all big off for Dave Shalecki. He gets a massive tank slapper on. He just took too much of that high curb on the right hand side of the second Lesmo, and sent the car into a massive tank slapper, but was able to put the car from flicking around on him there. And that could have been a lot worse, and a lot more time consuming for Dave Shalecki, but he keeps it facing in the right direction in the end. So, and we'll have to negotiate one of the Porsche hypercars that will be trying to come past in just a second as well. So yes, there we go, there goes the hypercar up on past under the Michelin sign, and that gives Well, actually, I think that gives Dave a bit of free air for the time being now as he comes into the braking zone. And yeah, the next car is a hypercar coming up on him, and it's just going through Ascarius. We've got a yellow flag coming up briefly on circuit, but must have been only a small mistake. It looks like it was for Mateus Fusken coming out the second part, turn 5 of Del Roggia, and well, it doesn't seem to have been too costly to them. I can't see any sort of damage on that car, so I assume it was some sort of half spin just coming through that part of the circuit, and they will continue on in this race, seemingly unharmed, but maybe damaged a little bit. Well, no, maybe a little bit of damage to their pride as they come under the Michelin sign again.
Yeah, indeed. And drivers just considering, maybe there isn't that much grip, but obviously the track is changing constantly. A lap after lap, the rain has increased a bit more, so more spray, more wetness to kind of adjust to and just change the brake bias slightly, adjust the amount of speed you're trying to carry through slightly, particularly in these mid-engine cars like the Corvette and the 296, obviously. That's right, like the Corvette. I say that. Ignore me. Either way, the drivers starting to just adjust and deal with the ever-changing conditions in this race. I wonder, if we'll see kind of the leaders try and stay as long as they can and enjoy the spray-free areas. We see the Mustang of Tamenga cut the first chicane there, obviously. Gives Ralph Best a little bit of advantage to close up that gap. But I wonder if the leaders will try and, maximise, the time on the track without the spray in their face, and that way they can keep, driving on their limit without having to be compromised or having their vision compromised at all.
I just want to say as well, I don't know if we're going to acknowledge it yet, but Alex Barkin has retired from the race after that off earlier on. He said he hit the wall at 60 kph, so that was a quite heavy impact, as we saw for Alex in the end, and that will be the end of their race for the moment. As Ada says in track, looks like I'm a Noah's Ark, it's so wet. Yes, it is absolutely. Actually, how is it at this spring race? Because I know you said earlier, Stan, that it said the track had become dry, but I don't know if it's just me. It does look a little bit wetter again now.
Yeah, it does look wet, and it is still wet. I mean, it was dry in places, so I'll give you the stats if you like. So, on track, somewhere, the maximum wetness is 60%. Somewhere, the minimum wetness is 0%. So the average is apparently 40%. But the rain it's fairly light still. And obviously with the drivers driving around and the track, the water coming off the track, it's kind of pretty much the same. I know the rain has increased, as I said, but it's pretty much still the same. It's not too extreme in either direction. There might be an area that's slightly drier, as we see a snap there from the Corvette. One thing that's for sure is certainly earlier on, there was definitely a drier looking line. I don't know if you caught that, which is, I can't see one at all at the moment. Obviously the drivers will be feeling it better than we could see it, but I can't see any particular dry line at the moment.
No, and that's why I thought I'd bring it up, because when Aidan mentioned it in chat, I did think the circuit, the spray looks bigger again as well now. And I totally get what you're saying as well, that there was kind of parts of the circuit where you could just see a dry line starting to form, and now it just kind of, it doesn't look obviously massively wet, but you can see there is a little bit of precipitation on the circuit. There's that little bit of glaze of moistness over the track, and you can see that it is just a little bit wetter than it was at the start of the race, and you can kind of tell that as well, riding on board with Alfie Bevins as well, as he's sliding the car, the Flying 499P through this part of the circuit. Obviously this car doing quite well in the World Endurance Championship at the moment. It's taken 2 wins overall in the actually not 2 wins, more than 2 wins, I don't know what I'm on about, but then also obviously the Privateer AF Course car winning Le Mans last weekend as well. So it's the car to really beat in the real life championship at the moment, and Alfie Bevins has been the driver to beat over this championship so far as well. He's making inroads towards Zach Finney as well. Since we last looked at that time, it's got about a second to the Toyota driver, and we can see the energy, the mixed NRG coming up on their screen. But as you can see, Zach Finney has been managing it better than Alfie has been. Zach Finney's 27% of the mixed NRG left. Alfie Bevins only 21% of that left, and that is the advantage of, as I've been saying this whole time, of leading this race. You can just choose when to push, and well, this will be when Zach probably starts to stretch his legs a little bit, starts to start spinning the car up again. But as you can see, Alfie's been pushing this whole time, and well, it has made a second inroad now, but at the cost of his mixed NRG.
Yeah, just to clarify, obviously mixes the tower structure, the classes. So if I click this button, it should change to multi-class. So the energy is the vert energy. And unfortunately we got to the GT3 as one. But they do have the same thing to manage. I don't know how to describe it. You know, their vert energy they have to manage and make sure it doesn't fall to zero, otherwise they're hit with a hefty penalty. So they will be darting to the pits before that runs out, and most of the drivers obviously align that pretty much with their fuel. So when we can see the drivers there's got 20% energy, probably got 20% fuel left, really. So that gives us a good idea of where that is as well. But as I said, you know, hour and 3 to go. We'll probably see, as I said, between 50 and an hour now. 50 minutes remaining, and an hour will be when the guys will go to the pits, and they'll probably try and eke it out as much as they can. As I said, probably avoid coming into the spray. They don't need to. A bit of a wobble there, by the way, from Tomenga coming through Lesmo too. Did the Mustang. So Corvette again right onto the back, under the rear wing, into the slipstream as they approach Ascari. But Ralph will be incredibly brave to do it here, I think. So we'll probably be sticking with him until they've gone through Ascari, and probably try it at Parabolica, I'd imagine.
And yeah, be careful though, because as you've been saying, that car is incredibly slidey. So the thing is, I need to be careful that he doesn't get a little bit too eager here in this battle. But we have seen as well, Anton Semenko, we saw that half spin from them earlier, and so it's not. Well, I mean, that Mustang isn't full of confidence either in these wet weather conditions. So I think this should be a really interesting one between them once Ralph is able to get close enough. It's currently just over 6 temps back from Anton Tomenga as they come roaring down the start-finish straight now. The sounds of America coming right past us now as they come into the braking zone. As you can see, the front end start dipping as they both jump onto the brakes and turn the car into these first tight corners. It does seem that actually a little bit deeper there was Anton Tomenga, and that will compromise their exit. And I think Ralph was able to just carry that little bit more speed through there as the gap actually kind of stabilizes out. And actually, the Anton Tomenga seems to have got the better run out of there as the gap now is just peaked over to 7 temps of a second as they come into the braking zone once again for Del Roggia. They'll obviously Constantina back up into this braking zone, but it will stretch their legs back out again once the Mustang gets back onto the power, and it's just about staying around that 7 temps mark, and it's still probably our closest battle on the circuit between the pair of these guys. The others that are kind of extending out, obviously Zach Finney again did have the pace to extend that gap out, but that gap back out to Alfie Bevins. Now 4.5 seconds between, so it's 2 seconds to the 5499P driver. So there's space that he has a yellow flag out on circuit, and at the same time, and it is for Jacob Hine off at the second Del Roggia there. Let's see what's happened.
Yeah, let's have a little look here. Obviously Jacob on a recovery drive from earlier on, obviously clips the inside curb massively there, and flown the car off. Luckily he seems to avoid the wall though, hits the gravel, arrests the car, and just waits for the traffic to go by before obviously resuming on his way there.
So the Alpine will continue on, but yellows breed more yellows as we have another yellow flag out on circuit, and it's cleared itself. Dave Lecky there has had a little bit of an off. Let's see what's happened here. So coming up towards turn 1 now is Dave in the McLaren. We'll jump onto the brakes. Has he just left it a little bit too late, or is it too much curb? No, it's not through the first one. Oh, it takes a lot of such curb in the second one, and that, yeah, just unsettles the car and sends him pirouetting off into that big muddy puddle on the inside of the circuit. So he's turned a little bit into Peppa Pig there, but it will continue on in this race as well, it has been a little bit of a tricky one for poor Dave, just that kind of not seeming to be driving so well in the wet weather conditions. As we come to Runa Bertolfsson, currently 15 seconds ahead of Charlie Morgan. at this part of the race, but is kind of in a, and then has about 41-second gap to Max Savchuk. So I do feel a bit sorry for Rune Thompson here, because the Proton competition with a tech car in a bit of a world of his own.
Yeah, indeed, in that nice looking Porsche. Yeah, just lapping all on their own. Started currently where they started as well. Started P7, currently reside in P7. But a little stat for Rune Patofsson, is the fastest in Sector 1, so at the speed trap. In that little Porsche that could... Oh, sorry, my mistake. Zach Silver was slightly quicker by 1 kph exactly. So very, very close there. As they indeed just lap now. I think they're probably just waiting, as I said, for other drivers to pit, and probably keep an eye on drivers like Scotty, who are usually, you know, the masters when it comes to strategy. So keep an eye out for when Scotty boxes, and probably, you know, a massive crowd will join them fairly soon after, I'd imagine.
Another close battle breakdown on circuit now between Charlie Morgan and Zach Silver. Also, this Ralph Best battle as well has seemed to have closed up as well. Zach Silver seems to be falling into the grasp of Charlie Morgan again. We did see this battle kind of threatened through erupts earlier on as another yellow flag comes out on circuit. They'll come into the ring zone for Ascari as that brief yellow flag disappears. Turns the cars in, and it maybe just Zach Silver got up in some traffic, or just seems to be losing some pace at this part of the race, as Charlie Morgan now would to within 2 attempts of the Cadillac. As they'll come into the brain zone now for Ascari, Zach Silver right to the edge of the circuit, as Charlie Morgan taking a little bit more of a tighter line through here, and you can see again the rear end playing him up a little bit again. Just can't seem to apply the power as much as they'd want Zach Silver, and that has compromised them onto the start-finish straight. So this could be an opportunity now for Charlie Morgan to potentially go for a move. He's going to look to the outside. Zach Silver defends to the inside as they will now come into the ring zone. It's going to be the best of the late breakers. Zach Silver is the best of the late breakers and able to apply the car on the apex, but on the switchback now, Charlie Morgan applies the power. Sadly, I think that's the McLaren of Tim Bob there on the inside of the corner, blocks Charlie Morgan from being able to get the move done. That protects the 5th position of Zach Silver in that kind of like V-Series R for now. But in the 9.63, will the Porsche be able to get the move done? Will come into the braking zone, turns the car in, and it gets a lovely clean run, but actually what does, he gets really close to the edge of that gravel, maybe just flicking some of it back to the firewall there, as he was so close to just making contact with the outside gravel trap. But it's still right onto the rear of Zach Silver. Silver just about staying ahead. The gap's about 3 attempts between the two drivers. This is about the 5th position as they now come down towards Ascari. Going around the outside will try Charlie Morgan. Obviously Zach Silver, the fastest car in the speed trap so far, so it does have a little bit of a straight line advantage, but the Porsche is still going to try and send it around the outside. A lot of curb taken by Zach Silver in the end. That car seems to have struggled a little bit through Ascari at some points in this race. Doesn't seem to have struggled as much as they have in other parts of this race, but the Porsche is a lot stronger, so we'll now look to the outside as we come up towards the Parabolica. They'll jump onto brakes now by the 100-meter pole. There is the Ferrari of Mateus Fusken running up ahead of them. That is going to block Zach Silver ever so slightly, but it does mean he moves up and slots in front of Charlie Morgan. He's going to now dug underneath Zach Silver pushing him to the pit wall now as they come across the start-finish line. These two are side by side now as they come onto the start-finish straight. Nothing can separate the pair of them. A little bit of aggressive pushing to the inside by Zach Silver, but I think he knows it may be over, but actually it isn't, because Silver, again, best of the late breakers into turn 1, and has been able to slot his Cadillac V-Series R right back at the Team Penske car of Charlie Morgan, and it does mean that somehow Zach Silver holds on to 5th position, but this battle is far from over as they will now come up towards Del Roggia.
Yeah, indeed. Great job there from the Cadillac. Great job there from the Porsche as well. Really pushing their luck as they go through the chicane here. Nice and tidy. A little bit of a wiggle there for the Porsche in the background. Able to stick with the Cadillac for now, though, as they obviously slide through the first Lesmo. Again, just keeping that gap around 4 tenths, 5 tenths now as he drops back through. Let's see, going through Lesmo. Crucial corner, obviously, for the back straight towards the Ascari chicane. The gap is growing a little bit, though, but comes straight back down again as Charlie approaches the slipstream of Zach Silver. Again, has that advantage there of just applying the pressure on Zach Silver, waiting for him to make a mistake, and Charlie reap all the benefits as they enter the Ascari chicane. Nice bit of curve there. Obviously, the Cadillac ahead using a lot more of the inside curve. They're very confident. Compared to maybe the Porsche here, as they get a nice run actually out of Ascari again into the slipstream straight away. And Zach Silver, I'm sure, will be seeing this in the mirror, just thinking, why aren't you going away? How are you still here as he approaches the braking zone? Onto the brakes now, obviously, for Parabolica. Slightly looking to the inside, just Charlie Morgan maybe V'ing off this corner a bit differently to the Cadillac, who's maybe trying to take a later apex perhaps. Scrabbling for grip there is a Cadillac trying to get going again, but the Porsche's having none of it. Straight away closing that gap into oblivion, going completely out the window, side by side now as they approach turn 1 yet again. Same as last time, obviously, except the switched positions. Onto the brake, slides through the corner there. Obviously, the Cadillac having to cut the corner there after not being able to get through the Porsche, really. And obviously will let the Porsche go. I think that might be an illegal overtake in the game as well. So has let the Porsche go for now. So that's job done for Charlie Morgan. But, you know, as we said, Zach Silver has some great pace and some great racecraft as well. So I don't think that will be the end of that battle.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of an interesting one there, though, because it seemed like, I don't know if that was Zach Silver giving up the position, because it was a little bit of a flash there to Charlie Morgan once that he'd gone past. And I feel like Zach Silver felt like he was forced to stop the chicane there, and obviously that cost him his momentum through that part of the circuit. And it meant that Charlie Morgan could easily drive on past. So maybe a little bit of a frustrated Zach Silver we're going to see now, trying to reclaim this 5th position. And he's certainly not falling off the back of Charlie Morgan either. Morgan seems to now be struggling. Now they're ahead of each other. And actually Charlie Morgan in the end has decided to give the position back to Zach Silver, maybe feeling like that it was a little bit of a too aggressive move on his part. It did lean on the Mustang a lot as they went into turn 1, and obviously Charlie felt that was true and has given the position back to Zach Silver, and this means this battle will reignite itself again as we see a car off on the exit of Semenko off in the big way on the exit of Ascari. Has lost the rear end of that Ford Mustang, and it seems like that is, well, yeah, it's rather second-hand now, that car. It looks like it's got front-end damage as well, this part, from what I can see, and that is not good for the car that was running decently well, was fighting with Ralph Best. As we see Charlie Morgan, one of our first pit stoppers of the race, has come in to their stall and stopped, as we see actually a few other cars in there. I think that's Atsel Baskar, I think, in there as well. Johnny Ashley, I beg your pardon, it is. Shenko in the pit lane, Charlie Morgan, Nick Manders, Angela Scott, as we kind of theorised, everyone's going as Angela's going, everyone else is joining us as well. Anton Semenko has finally made their way to the pit lane. I think Fusgen has also made their way in. You can see the Proton Porsche in the pit lane as well. I'm just trying to see if there's anyone I've missed. I don't think there is, as we can see most of the drivers have decided to come in. Nick Manders, I think I've said, and yeah, so this seems to be the, and actually, as you theorise, between that 1 hour 10 minute mark and 50-minute mark, we thought the drivers would come in, and it seems the drivers coming in right at the end there, as we are now clock on to 15 minutes and 40 seconds now to go of this race. And this seems to be the spot that most of the drivers have chosen to make their much needed stops in this race. And obviously, I mentioned it every round, but obviously still new simulators with LMU. Drivers got to be careful when they do come out of their pit stalls, they don't make contact with other cars, because there is no ghosting in the pit lane, and you will, if you come out and there's another car next to you, you will just hit them. As Christian Kiesig currently runs in 14th overall in this race, but that is now 5th position in class, and I think has come in obviously for their pit stop much earlier in this race. I don't know how well we know Christian Kiesig is someone that can save their fuel pretty well over the race. He's a master strategizer, and well, with that early stop, we'll have to see if they can make something work. And well, they are right on the back of this kind of top half of the GT3 field, and will well, surely dispense of Johnny Ashley will move to the right hand side part of the circuit, go around the outside of Johnny, and that is done before Ascari. And we'll see if Johnny does decide to come back into the braking zone. He's still in close proximity and will go back down the inside into the braking zone and will get his nose chopped off by the Porsche of Christian Kiesig, who will continue on in the, well not, I was going to say in the lead, but will continue on now in 4th position in this class, and we'll have to get past Greg Prescott, who I believe still needs to pit in this session.
Indeed, a few cars yet to stop. Leader of the GT3 field, Matthias Schutzgen, as you're saying as well. So will be one of the last, I'd imagine, to give up that kind of free air, that spray-free air, and come into the pits. Christian Kiesig, obviously, who pitted earlier on in the race, now up to P4 in class, P3 now, as he passes Johnny Ashley in that BMW in Christian's iconic Porsche at this point, I think. Doing a great recovery job. Obviously, Kiesig, as we say, astonishing pace as per usual, up to 2nd now, by the way, with Matthias Schutzgen in the pit box. I don't know if Kiesig will be able to go to the end. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, I'd imagine he'll have to stop again, at least for a smash and dash, stop up that Vex energy, and get going again. But either way, great recovery. Started on pole, obviously, we saw, had an issue right at the beginning of the race, all the carnage going on, and has recovered all the way back up the field with some great lap times. In the hypercar field, by the way, Nick Manders finds himself right in the back of Zach Silver post pit stops. One of the reasons being, obviously, Zach Silver entered the pits behind Nick Manders. Nick's stop was 12 seconds longer, is why. So a bit of a slower stop there for the Dutchman. Looks like, actually, Nick's stop was an unusually slow stop, as Alfie Bevan, Angela Scott, and Zach Silver all had around 40 seconds stop. So Nick's the anomaly there.
And Zach Finney will go now as well, and it's onto the grass there as they come past Johnny actually there for the pair of them. They're running side by side now up into Ascari. I will have to ask you that second question in just a second. As Zach Silver going around, sticking to the outside, but the nose of the Porsche is still there. Nick Manders trying to find a way through and past to Zach Silver. Silver getting quite aggressive with his overtakes past the GT3 cars. They'll have to try and dispense now of Christian Kiesig. Oh my goodness, there Nick Manders pushing Zach Silver out of the way and passed around the outside of Parabolica. Has run deep though, so back up the inside comes Zach Silver. Silver and Nick Manders running side by side, nothing between them, no love lost at all between them either as they rub as they come past the GT3 traffic. Nick Manders back up into 4th position, but this is far from over. We know the straight line speed that Zach Silver has in that Cadillac V2 and he's going to look to the inside into turn 1. We know how strong he is on the brakes into here as well, and will get the car turned in. No, he won't. He skips the chicane, has to jump over the sausage curb, and that's going to give the move to Nick Manders. They'll run side by side out of that section of the circuit. The move goes back the way of Nick Manders, who is going to extend the gap out to about 3/10 of second. Right on board with the Cadillac V Series R, full throttle on, 290 km/h, and they'll slam onto brakes now, so you can hear the car aggressively downshifting to try and keep on the rear of that Porsche. But I believe Nick Manders should have the pace on Zach Silver. However, did have it in the earlier stages, and it seems to be opening that gap up. As you can see, Zach Silver trying to be careful on the throttle to not spin the rear end of the car up, but also having to try, always a little bit of a lock up there. It didn't grip up on the front end and runs wide around the second Lesmo, but you can see really pushing that Cadillac V Series R around the circuit, but just doesn't seem to have the pace to be able to keep to the rear end of Nick Manders. What I was going to say to you, Sam, was what was the stop like for Charlie Morgan? Morgan seems to have lost out to Zach Silver in the pit stop as well. As actually this battle may reignite in a second as a GT3 car held up Nick Manders through that part of the circuit, but actually I think still Atal Basco hasn't done enough to bring him back towards Zach Silver.
Indeed, and actually Charlie's stop was pretty much the same as Nick's stop, so 12 seconds slower than the average, so 52 seconds stop, so a bit of a longer stop there. Maybe it needs to tolerate a little bit more vertical energy perhaps, maybe creating a bit of damage. So yeah, certainly suboptimal, I think we'll go with. So we continue to watch.
Oh, sorry. No,
continue to watch these two. I was getting ever closer. I'm trying to get the gap back on screen, but it's not cooperating. But I will continue to endeavour.
Would you like me to talk while you try and do that?
Go for it.
Okay, we'll continue on then. Starting on board with Zach Silver, and we'll do a little bit of a track guide with him right now. So we're coming up towards Della Roggia here. We'll jump onto the brakes now. You can see kind of slowly lets off the brake throttle and just being a little bit gentle on the power there until he's facing right back in a straight line, then applies it fully again, and we'll come up towards the Lesmos now. It's just a little bit of jumps down the gears there into second gear on the second Lesmo, jumps up to third, up to fourth, then we'll go down 2 gears again to turn into the second Lesmo, rides that inside curb and rides it right to the edge of that sausage curb to Zach Silver. He will now come into the left-hand kicker, Sarah Dilgio, and will come up towards Rante Ascari now, the turns 8, 9 and 10. Brakes by just before that orange Marshall hut on the right-hand side there. Will takes a lot of inside curb on the second part of the circuit and then jumps across the left-hand curb of turn 10 as we now ride back on the outside, and you can see that gap has come up to about a second between himself and Zach Silver. But the good thing is for Zach Silver, obviously the damage to Shine Morgan has meant there's now an 8-second gap between the pair of them, so won't have him to worry about. At the front of the field, Alfie Penn's, that gap has come down between himself and Zach Finney. 1.7 seconds separates the race leaders as it currently stands. Atal Bhaskar has a 13-second lead over Johnny Ashley, so the BMWs with their 1-2 seem to have an iron hand on that GT or LMGT3 standings so far in this race, as these two actually continue on, but a little bit runs very deep actually to Zach Silver, and that's going to really open up the gap between the pair of them. 1.2, now 1.3 seconds is the gap between both these drivers, nearly the same as the gap as the 2 leaders in the class have between them. And actually, again, this is the gaps have opened up a little bit again. This is our closest battle on the circuit. Christian Kiesig is closing the gap down to Matthias Buzgen, and actually bad news for Zach Silver has caught I believe that is Tim Bob in the wrong part of the circuit there through Del Roggia, and it has meant that the gap has now opened up to 1.5 seconds between Nick Manders and Zach Silver in this fight for 5th position. So this battle has kind of simmered down ever so slightly, and actually nearly up to 2 seconds is the gap between the pair of them at this point in the race. But yeah, really the manufacturer informed BMW at the moment in the GT3 class, both of them have an iron fist on the front of that field, as it seems like the next battle that could be commencing is between Alfie Bevan and Zach Finney. Finney has done a really good job of controlling this race, but obviously a little bit of a reset now after they both have come into the pit lane. You can hear the downshifts of the Turbo just off screen now. You can hear the Ferrari downshifting now, and well, it's the 499P is slowly kind of, well, the gap's not really coming down, or it's not really going up either. Actually, it's gone up a little bit, now up to 2 seconds, so it seems over that Zach Finney just a little bit faster.
Yeah, seems that way. Obviously, we saw the gap earlier on a bit bigger than what it is now, but putting in the laps is after having just a little bit quicker. Last lap was Bevan and Zach Finney 2/10. Obviously post pit stops. Pit stops also was the second in Zach Finney's favour, so very, very close between these two. Angelo Scotti 11 seconds away, so pretty much kind of out of the picture at the moment, unless obviously Zach or Alfie has a little bit of an issue, which we've seen, you know, a little bit of a slide from there. It all adds up, you know, particularly as the stint draws on and your tyres aren't what they were at the beginning of the stint. Christian Kiesig, obviously, next target in his sights, by the way, after his second pit stop of the race, put him down to P6, is Matthias Fuskin in the McLaren, which we just see ahead there, that red McLaren, just under a second now, and Christian Kiesig here closing in a rate of knots as well, so Fuskin better get a move on, I'd imagine.
Yeah, as the gap now 10 between them, and the hypercars are going to make this one a little bit awkward depending on where Christian Kiesig finds them. Luckily, whoever it is has decided to stay behind, coming into Ascari. Will they try and go around the outside? The second part, no, they won't. Have been very patient there, one of the Penske cars, and it doesn't mean obviously it's hindered the Penske car there, but Christian Kiesig, it's been very helpful to he does between them, weaves between the pair of them. 4 tenths is the gap now between Matthias Fuskin and Christian Kiesig. This is going to be, as it stands, move. Actually, Johnny Ashley, I don't know what's happened there, but it's fallen to 4th position in the LMGT3 class. and will be the next tyres to Christian Kiesik once this cycle happens. Once the Sotec happens, I mean, as they are getting closer. 2 attempts between the pair of them. This may be a move from Christian Kiesik coming into turn 1. We'll see now. They come onto the brakes. Will Kiesik look for a move? No, just still a little bit too far back from Matthias Fusk, and we'll see what drive, as you can see the rear brake disc lighting up there from Christian Kiesik's car as he stamps on the brakes for turn 1. But as they come out of the corner again, the gap has closed down, but still not close enough for Christian Kiesik to try and get some sort of move done. Still, the gap is too big between the pair of them, and as they come up towards Del Rogia here, it's again going to still be a little bit too much for Christian Kiesik to try and close up. We'll jump onto the brakes as there's been a little bit of an off. It's for Dave Strzelecki again, still having a few minor issues in that McLaren, but we'll come back to the fight between Fusgen and Christian Kiesik, who's going to send the car right up the inside there into the first Lesmo and has got the move done. Has the hypercar on their inside, but they'll be passed by the second Lesmo, and Christian Kiesik move done and dusted, and that moves them back up into 5th position in that hypercar, no, LMGT3 field, and the next target is Johnny Ashley, who's about 23 seconds up the road ahead of them. But yeah, Johnny now sits in 4th in the LMGT3 class, moving Yaroshenko up into 2nd position behind Atal Baskar. And Ralph Best having a really good result here, running in 3rd position in that Corvette, and that will be their best result of the season so far if they are able to hold on to the position. Has shown threats of this pace so far, but it's just kind of lacked consistency with that Corvette being, well, famously a little bit twitchy at the rear end, a little bit hard to drive, and does spin around a lot. But Ralph Best doing a good job of taming that car in these wet weather conditions so far here at Monza. Still 37 minutes to go in this race. You're currently watching the Sim Hound LMU 100 series, round 6 of the championship here at Monza, as we currently have 37 minutes left of racing around the Temple of Speed, as a little bit of a kind of, not a dull period, I don't want to say that, but a little bit of a shut-eye period for some of our cars, as the closest gap on second again between our leaders, Zach Finney and Alfie Bevan, 1.5 seconds between, now 1.6, kind of fluctuating between the two of them, as actually in a minute Christian Kiesik is going to be overtaken by the Caravan Jacob Hine, who's still trying to make their way up through the order after being involved in a major lap 1 incident, and will surely be past Kiesik in any second. Now you can see the Alpine coming up onto the rear end of the Porsche. Obviously it's going to be a lot quicker, as it's a hypercar up against an MGT3, and there you go, and through goes at as part of that, Jacob Hine goes up on through in the Alpine Endurance Team Alpine, as Christian Kiesik can carry on in this race, and we'll have to try and close the gap to Johnny Ashley, who's about 20 seconds up the road, probably just over that.
Yeah, indeed. Let's have a little look, shall we? Johnny Ashley is, here he is, 3.5 seconds off of Ralph Fest in P4. Johnny Ashley missing out on the pit stops after having to take 2 stops for unknown reasons. Has stopped obviously in extra time. That's put him down to 4th, so comes out from 2nd, you know, on the back of Athel Baskar, down to 4th. So very unfortunate. 3.5 seconds, as I said, though, away from Ralph Fest in P3, so still time to get it done. Although the best laps are fairly close in pace. A 10th quicker was Johnny Ashley on his fastest lap than Ralph Fest, so I don't know if it's going to be as easy as it's been previously, but I say Christian Kiesik as well, 7 seconds away on the warpath, it seems, under his recovery drive, trying to catch back up to where he was and where he rightfully feels he should be in terms of pace on the track. Last lap was a couple seconds quicker, obviously, than Johnny, with Johnny's, I think it was an out lap as well, so that would account for that slightly. In the hypercar field, we've still got Charlie Morgan teasing a battle with Zach Silver for P5, and similarly Alfie Bevan ever so close to being within a second of Zach Finney in that monster Toyota, who just has, you know, incredible grunt in a straight line as well, it seems, as he tries to get past a Mustang coming through parabolic around the outside. That could have been very interesting should it have gone wrong.
And it has cost him time, up to 2 seconds now is that gap.
Yeah, so that one little thing. And, you know, you have to think maybe it was worth just being on the brakes a bit longer and, you know, veering off that corner, perhaps letting the Mustang run out wide where it wanted to be, and you tucking in and, you know, getting the power done that way. But that's done now, and it's those little things you learn, I think. But, you know, being that close to Zach, you know, you're just focusing on getting past and trying to be as quick as you can, and sometimes you don't see the forest for the trees, really. But as you say, yeah, has lost a second there, unfortunately. And last lap as well would have been 0.6 quicker than Zach Finney if he wasn't a second slower through Parabolica. So yeah, very unfortunate there. But seems to have some paces. We see either a lockup or some spray as the track. You can see how dry the track is. Obviously, a lot less spray. It's down to about 12% wetness. We can see your drier line there, a darker patch of tarmac as well, which certainly helps. The rain's lessened, so I think now is when the drivers will really want to be putting the hammer down there. You know, far enough into the stint now, where I don't think they have to worry about having enough energy, having enough fuel. I think they've done enough kind of saving and done enough math, I'd imagine, so far. Now they can put the foot down and try and catch up to some other drivers, just like Charlie Morgan, by the way, who's now on the back of Zach Silver.
Well, yeah, it's really close to that gap down, because there was a big gap between them after that period, but it seems Charlie Morgan just has that superior pace in that I was going to say Ford Mustang, I'm getting all my cars mixed up, in that obviously in that Porsche, as he's coming up on the back of the Cadillac once again. It's well, we saw how good this battle was earlier between them, and hopefully we get a little bit of the same again, as well, Zach Silver has been quite aggressive in some of these some of his defensive moves so far, so I can surely bet this will be a sizzling battle again, as they will come up towards the Scari. 3 attempts between them, not really close enough this time for Charlie Morgan to attempt to move it into this corner. It has to be some sort of late dart up the inside, and it's not really worth doing that yet, with 33 minutes still to go in this race, and actually does run a little bit wide for a Sky, and usually stronger through there. There's a little bit of a Dukes of Hazzard as well, right over the left-hand curve of turn 10. That was rather aggressive from Charlie Morgan, and well, yeah, it seems to be all 4 wheels off of the ground there, but it seems to be getting the move done. It's a little bit cheeky there by Zach Silver. Let's off of the accelerator by the looks of it before jumping on the brakes there, and obviously that forced Charlie Morgan to go offline and go to the inside there. A little bit of defensive trickery by Zach Silver to try and force Charlie Morgan into a little bit of a compromised position. It hasn't really worked though, because Charlie Morgan is now going to go to the outside into turn 1. There is an GT3 car up ahead though. Oh gosh, I wouldn't be one to be Yarishenko at the moment. It's down the inside, contact between the pair of them. The left-hand rear of the Cadillac makes contact with the right front of the Porsche. A little bit of a bump. I don't think it was enough to make too much damage between the pair of the cars, but just shows these two aren't afraid to rub body panels, as Charlie Morgan needs to try and dispatch of Yarishenko now. And they'll come into the braking zone, and has done that, so that's good, because I mean, if he got stuck behind Yarishenko through Della Roggia there, it would have cost them some time, but the gap is about just over 2 attempts between these two. They'll come through the Lesmos now. The first of the Lesmos, still really slidey on the rear end is Zach Silver in that Cadillac V-Series R. In the 963 though, seems a lot more planted to Charlie Morgan. It just seems that's why he does have that superior pace, as the Cadillac, that V8 motor, we can hear roaring past our cameras under the bridge now, and the gap is about 4 tenths, so actually a little bit extended a little bit to where it was last time around this part of the circuit. But we know how strong the Porsche can be through here compared to the Cadillac. This is really where the Cadillac is compromised. Its last couple of corners, you can see again, kicks up the dirt on the right hand side of the circuit, puts 2 tyres on the right hand side into the gravel, and as they come up towards the Scari now, we see one of the Peugeots going through with James Cowley. To the inside goes Charlie Morgan, trying to catch that Silver, sleeping. Silver's aware of it though, and carries the momentum around the outside of the corner, but the short line goes away of Charlie Morgan, nipping at the rear end of the Cadillac V-Series R as they come down the start finish straight now. Is it going to be a move by Charlie Morgan? Morgan looking to the outside, and as they come into the braking zone now for turn 1, it is the Cadillac that stays ahead, is kept on the circuit, and it just seems the Cadillac is, whatever brake bias it's running into turn 1, it's just able to brake that a little bit later, and that is really what is saving Zach Silver.
Yeah, so far, but 30 minutes to go. It's a long time to hold up to that sort of pressure that Charlie Morgan's playing. But similarly, you know, what's this costing Charlie Morgan? Is it fuel? Is it tyres? Is it virtual energy? You know, we don't know, and I have to wait and see. But if Charlie Morgan has the pace and has the ability to get past, then then by all means, obviously, go for it. Why would we stop him, and why would tyres stop him? Obviously, you just have to be a bit more mindful later on and manage those and make up for that deficit later on. But for now, battling for P5 and giving it a good show as well, as they obviously go for another lap round through the Lesmos and heading towards... yeah, they are heading towards the Scourge Gate. Sorry, I've just lost myself for a second there. Yet again, but yeah, Charlie just sticking with him, you know, and getting ready to attack again, I'd imagine, at Parabolica, as he's done previously and as it's worked previously. So, you know, have a tidy run through Ascari. Don't be too aggressive. Just get a nice run. Stick with Zach Silva. Obviously, last time he tried the inside. Imagine if he tries something different this time. Obviously, getting closer and closer in the slipstream gap, closing ever so slightly. Both his drivers drifting towards the outside, the racing line, onto the brakes. Now we can see how much the spray's picked up as well. So a lot more wetness, it seems, on track. A little bit of a slide from Charlie Morgan, the Porsche, mid-corner there, onto the power now coming out. Let's see who gets a better run. Gap's about 2/10, closing with the rear, under the rear wing of the Cadillac. Obviously, Mustang of Temenga getting on by there as well. Sticking with the Cadillac, forces him to the inside there, takes the middle of the circuit, does the Porsche onto the brakes. Obviously, not as close as it was last lap, though.
Yeah, it's still not, and the Porsche not really able to win on the brakes here. We may get a little bit of a switch back here, and it's actually a little like he got the power a lot earlier than Zach Silva did. But the thing is, Zach Silva so much raw pace in that Cadillac, and it just is, even if he's not on the power earlier than the Porsche, he's just able to stretch its legs out and get away as they come into the braking zone for Del Roggia. The Porsche is close, but still nowhere near close enough to where it needs to be to try and get that move done. It takes a lot of curve as well on the left-hand side of the circuit going into turn 4, and it has compromised. I was going to say compromised. I take it all back because it's right back on the rear of Zach Silva. They'll come through Lesmo 1, now up towards Lesmo 2. The gap's still just under 3/10 of a second. They'll get onto the power again to come up towards Ascari. This is where the Cadillac will start to struggle, and this is where Charlie Morgan, in that slipstream, needs to make sure that he takes as much of the advantage as he can, try and set himself up. And you can see a little bit of braking a little bit early there is Zach Silva, being a little bit cheeky there to just try and put Charlie Morgan off, try and compromise him under braking, but he isn't working, and actually Charlie Morgan right back onto the rear end of Zach Silva. And Silva, he's going to have to be careful that Zach doesn't play mind games again. He's laying off the power again, so it means Charlie Morgan's going to go to the inside, and Zach Silva trying to run around the outside, and he's going to have well, obviously he's able to carry the momentum, but as we saw last time, Charlie Morgan is able to carry that, well, not even carry, take that tighter line, and as they run side by side now, it's side by side between the pair of them, and it looks like the Porsche's trying to move front. Going back into the slipstream goes Zach Silva. Silva's going to look to the outside as they come into turn 1, but surely the Porsche have moved on, but oh, Zach, he's squeezed him to the inside there. Wasn't really much room between them. It is a very tight corner to try and let them through, and it does mean that Zach Silva is going to carry on in 4th position, and a 5th position, I beg my pardon, as it stands. As just again, the kind of like strong point is that braking zone, and as they come into Del Roggia here, it does mean that Zach still stays ahead, but he's got to try and deal with these GT3 cars, and this could present an opportunity to Charlie Morgan as things currently stand. Morgan raced a little bit earlier, so we can kind of calculate what the LM GT3 cars are doing up ahead. Silva's going to go on the inside of Atal Bascar. Bascar's going to slot between the pair of them. Actually, I think that might be Johnny Ashley now. No, it is Atal Bascar, I think, as Greg Prescott running up ahead as they will come and make their way through this battle, and they have manoeuvred their way through nicely. Actually, Zach Silva doing the better job of that, has opened up the gap to about 5/10 between them as they now come through this part of the circuit. But Silva really struggling through his guy this time, really struggling. He's off the circuit, he's lost all the grapefruit there, and it means that Charlie Morgan has easily found their way through. But the thing is, this is far from over, because it looks Charlie Morgan is going to, he needs a good entry around the Parabolica here, because we know Zach Silva has phenomenal straight line speed. The gap has opened up to 5/10, but you can see Zach Silva a lot stronger there, has caught up nearly a 10th, but the gap opening up again because the Cadillac B teams are still really struggling to get on the speed on that power pedal when they are getting out of Parabolica, and it does compromise him going onto the straight. It looks like this is all the mistake that Charlie Morgan needed, because it's got that gap up to about 6/10, but actually as they come to the ring zone, a small lock up there from Zach Silva. The GT3 traffic, I think that's Stage Lucky has got the way of the Porsche. The Porsche goes all slidey coming out of the first corner there, and it does mean that Zach Silver's right back onto the rear end. 210 separates the pair of them. They'll come past Mateus Puskin, who's there on the right hand side of the circuit. And now as they come into the braking zone, it does look like Power is back on into Del Roger. It kind of like seems to take the top line through there. It's getting struggling to get on the Power again though. 3 tenths is the gap between them. They'll come into Lesmo 1. Another little lock up. You can just tell how much Zach Silver's pushing here, and he's drifting the car through the first Lesmo. We'll come on towards the second Lesmo, drop it 2 kids, turns the car in, takes a lot more curve than the Porsche, but that just seems to set up the car on exit, and it does mean the Porsche's got the run on the straight. The gap has opened up to 5 tenths between them, but there is more traffic up ahead, which could work in Zach Silver's favour. So this is really far from over. They'll come into the ring zone now. You can see, I think that's one of the BMWs, maybe Ansel Baskar running it up ahead, or actually it might be a Corvette Valfest, but again, really struggling on the power. Through Ascari is Silver. Silver has lost more time. 7 tenths is the gap between himself and 5th position, and it doesn't look like he's going to get stuck behind the Corvette of Valfest coming into the Parabolica, and it does mean the gap is now 1.2 seconds. I think that is this battle done and dusted.
Yeah, for now, at least for now. I mean, it almost looks like Zach Silver was lifting and coasting ever so slightly. It's hard to say whether he was doing that for fuel reasons, economy reasons, or whether, you know, just the fact that you're following in the car and you need to brake slightly earlier and have slightly lower amount of speed than you usually would do. But even now on his own here, just being a bit more gentle on the brake, a bit more gentle control. We'll have to wait and see. 24 minutes to go. It's not that long to go, and it looks like, you know, they've got plenty of energy remaining, so it shouldn't be an issue on that regard. But we'll have to wait and see, obviously, as well. By the way, looking back to the GT3 field, obviously we had Johnny Ashley pit twice. Obviously we had Christian Kiesig pit twice. Now we have Ralph West pitting twice as well. So maybe the GT3s needing to pit twice to make their strategy work. Obviously Johnny Ashley now promoted to 3rd because of it, really, or should I say, you know, back towards where he was before the pit stop. So maybe some of the other drivers will be 2-stopping. Maybe that's a strategy, Tom, 2 stops for the GT3. So after Baskar, Dmitry Yaroshenko maybe yet to stop then, and maybe that means another place on the cards for Johnny Ashley in this race. His stop, by the way, Johnny Ashley, 6.5 seconds for his splash and dash of kinds, 34 seconds total in the pit lane. And what's the gap now between Johnny and Dmitry Yaroshenko? 15 seconds.
Yeah,
so,
maybe yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so that's another position, I'd imagine.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what happens here. We do know Johnny from past events, so does like a little bit of an alternate strategy. When he was with us at Imola as our on-board driver, he was obviously he was telling us about the alternate strategy he'd gone for there. Obviously not alternate in that he's gone for a 2-stop, but how early he's gone for the 2-stop, maybe compared to the rest of the runners in the field. And we'll have to see if that does pay off for him. Dave Schlecki pulling off to the left-hand side of the circuit there. What has gone on?
Let's have a little look, shall we, in the replay? Side by side then with the BMW. Into Ascari on the brakes. Over the curb. All fine as here, but I think this curb, as we've seen so often, indeed it is, yep. Obviously the car is loaded up with a lot of left-hand steering. Unsettle the car and it just grips and sends you off into the wall, which it's done on numerous occasions for many drivers tonight.
Yeah, and I just want to go back to the lead battle. Gap has opened up again, 2.2 seconds between Zach Finney and Alfie Bevans at this point in the race. So that seems like that battle has, cooled down at least a little bit for now. Still 21 minutes to go, but I mean, Alfie's must have tried everything at this point, and just seems like Zach Finney really has control on this. Dmitry Yaroshenko currently is running at second place in the class, is quite far back, from Atal Bas. Johnny Ashley currently running now on 3rd in that class, 15 seconds behind Atal as things currently stand. There is your top 5 from each class. You can just see how separated it is out. Alfie's gone back to within 2, actually no, I take it back, he's gone back to over 2 seconds back from Zach Finney, but the GT3 LMGT3 class quite separated out. Baskar is about 40 seconds, well, just under 40 seconds ahead of Yaroshenko. Ashley's 15 seconds back, and then 11 seconds back is Kiesig from Ashley, and 17 seconds back from that is Vest in 5th. And so you saying that Yaroshenko, does he still have a stop to do if it's a 2-stop?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'd imagine if 2 stops is required, then he'll either be lifting and coasting massively, or maybe the other guys have got the strategy slightly wrong again. I don't know. I mean, a lot of the other drivers haven't stopped twice yet, obviously. So Shiskin, Prescott, Tim Bob, Temenga, Dave Zlecki, etc. Temenga, by the way, who's down in 9th in class, 19th overall now. Must have had a big incident that we missed. Obviously, he lost his wing earlier on in the race, but could this damage all be from that one incident?
Yeah, I mean, it did look like hefty off. It was a Scary, you've got to remember as well. So high speed is part of the circuit, and obviously in these wet weather conditions, you're not going to have the friction of the dry tarmac to slow you down as you're heading towards the wall. So if he's kind of just spun the car off there and gone in heavily backwards, it could have, it could have well been just he had that much damage, because obviously we saw a similar incident for Alex Parkin earlier in the race, and he obviously was forced to retire because of how hard he went off at Scary. So it could well be that that's just how much damage he had.
Yeah, no, very true. We've seen how detrimental losing a rear wing can be. At least he was able to get to the pits and get going again, which is obviously always great to see. By the way, Alfie Bevan, almost half a second away from Zach Finney now. What's happening there?
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, yeah, what has happened there? Sorry, as you could see by my delayed reaction, that took a while to process in my head. But yeah, we're in a second now between the pair. But it's just, as I said, I was stealing this phrase from the cricket. They call it mother cricket. I'm going to call this mother endurance, because it's the mother endurance gives, mother endurance takes away. And I think in this point of the race, it's just maybe traffic has got in the way of Zach Finney. He's met traffic in the wrong parts of the race, and maybe it's just brought him back to Alfie Bevan, and who's kind of caught the traffic in the right spots, which he hasn't there, because Tim Bob right on the apex of the corner, forcing Alfie to take the absolutely widest line he can through the second leftmost. That's not going to have helped, and actually has opened the gap back up to 1.7 seconds. So there you go. Mother endurance takes away from Alfie Bevan in the end, and it does mean that in terms of things, it means that Alfie has actually lost all that time he just made up.
Yeah, and I just see there as well a penalty pop for Temenga, by the way, who's here obviously in his Mustang. Track limits perhaps, so we'll have to serve, I think, a drive-through as well. On top of his recovery drive here with dealing with the damage, we'll now have to run through a drive-through and maybe even battle Dave Zlecki, who themselves is having an issue there. We can see in the background the McLaren of Dave Zlecki, who will come out. Oh dear.
Oh, Dave.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. If anyone's listening and wants to clip that and shame Dave, I will more than oblige you with a replay when it loads.
So a little bit too much curb on the left-hand side, spins off, heavy left hand contact with that outside sidewall, and then if we get it, oh no, we haven't got it, but a bit of an embarrassing moment. As we get oNiD. Dave now grabbing his way back to the pit lane. He's really fighting that car. That is the definition of fighting the car back to the pit lane. You can really see he's just having to choke the wheel to the left-hand side to go, no, face this way, no, face this way, no, face this way, stop it, face this way now, come on car, face this way, please face this way, no, face in the right direction now. As he's nearly back to the pit lane, and he's still fighting it. No, car, stop fighting me, car. No, into the
even
wall.
More damage.
And
the thing is, it didn't even look too bad, the initial hit. Then he reversed into the wall and left his wing for one of the marshals to take home as a memento, I'm sure.
Yeah, and now, that marshal on the right hand side there just looks looks like he felt a little bit sorry for him, as Alfie Bevan back to 1.3 seconds is now the gap. So obviously Alfie has found the pace at this stage in the race, and it looks kind of wet again on the circuit. I wouldn't say it looks particularly as dry as it has through some parts of the race, but 1.5 seconds is the gap. 1.4 actually now is the gap. So this gap is coming down ever so slightly between the pair of them. It doesn't help that Alfie then just get a kick through end out there through the parabolic. That's going to cost him a little bit of time down the start finish straight. Actually, he's put it back up to 1.7 gap between them. But I think all we can say is, as things currently stand, 15 minutes to go, it can easily change. But as it stands, Zach Finney did an incredible job of just controlling this race from Alfie. Alfie is really probably the one used to being in charge, kind of feeling like he has the step ahead of the person ahead of him or the person behind him. But really today it seems like Zach Finney is pulling really a masterclass of how you control the race when you're sitting at the front of it. No one else really has been able to threaten either of these two, as Angela Scott is yet again going to have another third position finish in this season. I'm just going to go to our standings. Angela Scott, this will be Angela Scott's fourth third position of this season after only a worst finish of fifth last time out as well. As you can see there, that is currently on 90 points in this championship, as obviously their worst rounds are the fourth and fifth, so those are the two drop rounds. So currently sits just 8 points ahead of Elvin Blomqvist, who has a win but has missed 2 rounds, so has counted his 5th and 7th place finishes. That means that he sits behind Angela in the championship. But as it stands, you can see Alfie Bevan is going to leave Monza as the outright championship leader, because James Cowley currently sitting down in 9th position, which will in fact will put him on less points as Alfie, including drop rounds after this round. And obviously Aidan Carter not taking part in this round as well, so that will affect their drop rounds as well. Christian Kiesig as well is going to be another driver that's this may affect, as things currently stand in the LMGT3 championship. Currently sits at the top of it, and has but this will be their worst result, so it will mean that their drop round of a third place finish in round 3 will now count towards their championship. But that shouldn't really matter too much, because Asal Baskar, this win still should leave them pretty close in terms of the championship. 28 points between them, and obviously that will shrink after this round. But as things stand, that should still mean that Christian Kiesig still sits at the front of this championship, which has also been quite competitive throughout the field. You can see not many points separating Tyler Hammer to Johnny Ashley either.
No, very close on that. And obviously Johnny Ashley doing a great job tonight. Up 2 places from the start, currently sits in 3rd. Has stopped twice, and as we see there, the gap is only 14 seconds to Dmitry Yaroshenko. Obviously, Christian Kiesig is the one who Johnny's probably thinking about at this point, only 6 seconds behind him now and closing in. Both these drivers have stopped twice. Christian Kiesig, though, obviously monster pace as ever. Last lap was 1.2 seconds quicker than Johnny Ashley, and at that pace, 3-4 laps. I'm trying to think if there's enough time in the race. Well, there's plenty of time in the race actually. 2 minutes lap for the GT3s, but it's about when the hypercars cross the finish line for when the GT3s finish. So yeah, plenty of laps yet, but no, not plenty of GT3s ducking into the pits. I'm noticing a lot of them sticking out with a 1-stop and thinking about going to the end, I'd imagine.
Yeah, continue.
No, Zach Silver obviously continuing or trying to continue his battle with Charlie Morgan. The gap's grown a little bit though, two and a bit seconds, but was quicker than Charlie on the last lap. So trying to catch up to him, I'd imagine. All it takes is one little mistake from Charlie, or slightly slower at lapping traffic than Zach, and that gap comes right down. And same for Alfie Bevan and Zach Finney. Obviously, this is Alfie Bevan catching up to Zach Finney. We see Zach there getting past the McLaren GT3 car eventually after coming through the chicane behind it. Obviously Alfie Bevan is in the optimal position where he can just drive on by going through Curva Grande there without needing to be slow through a corner, and that will certainly help Alfie's chances, I suppose, at taking the win of this race in these closing minutes.
So as we come back to about 2.5 gap between himself and Greg Prescott, so that means still 11 minutes to go. So that's still plenty of time for Tim Bob to try and close the gap down to Greg Prescott and try and move himself up a couple of positions in class. I'm just waiting for it to come up on the time screen so I can work out where this will be in the LMP23 standings. So this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th position in the LMGT3 class. And still having a good season as well here on it as well. If I just find it in my notes here somewhere, here it is. Currently in our oNiD Sim Hound, in our oNiD Sim Hound JCW Mini World Tour Series is currently first in the standings for that on 395 3 second place, which is Phillip Island last time out in that championship. So it's going to lead the way in that championship. So he's having a good season himself so far in the AMS running in our Corsa series. As we come back to the lead battle, and it's still 1.6 seconds between Zach Finney and Alfie Bevan, as the pair of them, for 1.5 second gap between the pair of them, as it stands coming down a little bit. But Zach Finney, yeah, you've got to argue he's done a good job of controlling the race so far, but still, well, now less than 10 minutes remaining, can easily still throw it away, and this is where the pressure starts to build up. This is where you need to really be on your A game, because Alfie's been in this position many times before, and realistically he hasn't got anything to lose at this point. If he spins, he's got 23 seconds now to Angela Scott, who's further down the field. So really, Alfie can throw everything at this. Nag obviously has a 1.4 seconds gap to the car if he makes a mistake, so he really can't afford to make any sort of mistake at the moment. He needs to stay focused. He needs to control this race how he has throughout the session so far, and he needs to try and basically just keep it on the circuit. So this is really where it's going to be game won or game lost for the pair of these two, and he looks like he's on the winning team at the moment. A 1.7 gap, it still seems to be fluctuating around that area like it has been now for the past 10 minutes. Has saved the most energy as well, 24% of his mixed NRG left, with Alfie only having 17%, so one of the lowest in the hypercar class. So it does mean that, well, yeah, in terms of things, he does have a lot of pace left in the car if Alfie does get any closer as well. So really, this is going to be a battle to keep an eye on, with 8 minutes now and 37 seconds still to go in this. And, well, what can we say about this person as well? Atal Baskar has been leading the way in this class and still has a 42-second lead over Yaroshenko in the field. So really, Atal Baskar, another driver having a great season so far. I don't think I finished it earlier. Currently fourth in the LMG, in our top, currently fourth in the GT3 Festival series we're running on Mondays, and also is currently leading in the Sim Hound Academy LMU Series 1, powered by Coach Dave. Is currently leading that championship by about 67 points from actually another driver in this series, Tim Bob. Currently Atal Baskar on 170 points in that series, Tim Bob on 103. So is really having an impressive time as he's, well, I think this is probably his debut season with oNiD, and really has brought a lot of pace to the championships that he's taken part in.
Yeah, indeed, and comes into the pits now, does Atal Baskar, for a top up of virtual energy, I'd imagine. Maybe fuel. Let's have a little look, I suppose. Obviously, Johnny Ashley's second stop was 6.5 seconds, so I can't imagine this one will take much time at all. Obviously, goes up onto the jacks and comes down here really quickly again. So, have another one there. Dimitri, actually, as you said, has plenty of margin, 40 seconds away before the stop, so don't think Baskar will be at risk of losing that. Assuming Yaroshenko obviously doesn't stop again anyway. But 9.5 seconds stopped with Atal Baskar, by the way, and yeah, a little bit longer than Johnny, but not a crazy amount of time, and comes out still remaining first with a sizable gap to P2. Obviously 15, 14 seconds, 13 seconds even now. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. 14 seconds to Baskar and Yaroshenko, 13 or just under that now to Johnny Ashley. So I wonder if the drivers will try and do it with one stop, and as they get closer to the end and the math is easy to do, they go, actually, I can't make that. I'll just go into the pits quickly. I'm not at risk of losing the position. You know, I've got enough of a gap, so I may as well. I mean, 30 to 40 seconds is how much you need to go through the pit lane and have a really short stop. So a lot of the drivers. Actually, saying that, a lot of the drivers don't have that buffer. Ralphest has the next biggest gap of 27 seconds to Christian Kesey, obviously. And I'm looking at all these numbers wrong. Don't worry about it. We'll see when cars come into the pits and when not. But I'd imagine they'd try and eke it out to the end on one stop, to be honest.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, something I've noticed, so Johnny Ashley only now 2 seconds ahead of Christian Kesey, so that's going to be one to keep an eye on, with now 5 minutes and about 40 seconds now to still go in this race. So there's still got to keep an eye on that battle, as that battle could easily closing up near the end of this race. Finney and Alfie Bevan still got to remember 1.8 seconds is now between the pair of those two, with 5 minutes and 24 seconds to go in the race. So there is still a lot to keep an eye on in the closing stages of this one, so stay tuned. We are currently watching the Sim Hound LMU 100 series, round 6 here at Monza. And well, we're currently riding on board with the BMW of Johnny Ashley. Currently, as you can see down the left-hand side, slots one of the hypercars to lap the BMW driver as he's neatly trying to get through the Scary chicanes at the moment. He's currently, I believe, trying to fight for 3rd position as it stands in the LMGT3 class, trying to defend that from current championship leader Christian Kiesig in his famous Porsche as he comes up towards Parabolic. Goes, maybe a little bit of a lock up there, I'm not too sure, but really seems to struggle to get the front end in there, and you can see it's really still struggling to get the grip as he's trying to exit from the Parabolica. We'll come down the start finish straight now. Less than 5 minutes to go, and oh my goodness, hello Alfie. We're right on board with Alfie Bevans now. Seems to be really fighting through Del Regia there as he comes into Lesmo now, but it's been held up by Greg Prescott as they come into brain zone. The gap had come to about a second. It's probably going to open up a little bit. 1.1 seconds now between them, and well, that isn't what Zach Finney needs. It's 4 minutes to go of the race. The gap now 1.1 seconds. That's going to give Alfie Bevan a little bit of an incentive here to try and bring the gap down to within less than a second, and that's exactly what he's done there. Coming into the braking zone briefly, 9/10 of a second between them. Alfie will surely view this one as still not over. 3 minutes and just over 40 seconds to go, and well, this is still plenty of opportunities left for Alfie to try and steal this win away right at the end of the race. They'll come around the final corner, and we've been seeing high 1 minute lap times around here, so it's gonna be probably another this lap and one more afterwards for the hypercar class as Matthias Fusken comes on through. And I don't know if I'm going to be awkward and ask you, my dear friend Sam, could you please put up the map so we can see whereabouts the traffic is around the circuit, because I feel like that could be quite useful at this part.
There you go.
Because obviously, and actually that's good news for Zach Finney, because as you can see, the next LMP3 car traffic is just going into Lesmo 1 now, so that is good news for Zach Finney. He does have a hypercar up ahead. That's going to be probably a little bit harder to try and catch with the timing left to go in this race, but the good thing is it means Zach Finney has clear circuit ahead of him, and as you can see, he's making use of it. Actually saying that, that gap has just dropped dramatically. 1.6 seconds goes to under a second, so that gap really came down. I don't know if there was a mistake there from Zach Finney, but the gap has really shrunk between them. 8/10 as Jake Hine has found the wall just out of Del Regia there as they Rogia, gosh, I'm getting all my words mixed up, as they go now onto towards the Scari. Do these two, still less than a second between them, as Finney feeling the pressure of Bevan at the moment, as they were a little bit of a rear end squiggle there from Alfie. Alfie really pushing at this point in the race. He knows this is really his last opportunity, really only maybe one more after this as they come up towards the Parabolica. Yellow flags out again on circuit as we come into the Parabolica now. Slams it down the gearbox. He can see Zach Finney in his highline. He can see how close he is. He can see how close this race victory will be as they come onto the start finish straight. This is where the yellow flag is, and it's Dave Schlecki. It's gone off to the right hand side there. I don't know if he's predicted wrong how much he needs to fuel the car for the race, but as they come down the start finish straight, still less than a second between these two as they come into the ring. So now Alfie Bevan's bulldogs up a little bit, and Alfie Bevan skips the chicane. He's made a little bit of a mistake. That's when he didn't need to do that, and he's exactly done it then. Somehow, still within the time, he has 5% of his power left, so obviously still pushing, still obviously feels like he has enough to last him till the end of the race, but that isn't much at all, is it, Sam?
No, it's not. I think it's about 3% usage a lap, and I think this is the last lap. Looking at, there's a minute, 56 minutes to go, 56 seconds to go, sorry, 40 seconds in. I think this is just going to be just the last lap. Obviously, with the error from Zach Finney, it would have been another lap, I think, which would have really crucified Bevan and Manders. And look at Silver's purchase energy as well. So these two right now, right at the back of each other, fighting now as they come out of the second Lesbo towards the Oscar chicane. Alfie Bevan doesn't have much to play with. Zach Finney's got all the energy he needs to get to the end of the race safely. Bevan's going to have to play smart with this, and obviously there's a Corvette coming up ahead as well. Maybe, is it worth it? Is P2 enough? Maybe you just take what you can get, but if there's an opportunity for P1, also grab it if you can, as he slides away through the exit. Mascari, Corvette, and GT3, they have to lap, obviously sticking with the slipstream of the Toyota. Goes Alfie Bevan with his Ferrari, heading towards Parabolic, obviously. Both his cars tight on the inside there. Pulls to the outside, goes to Ferrari, around the outside of the Toyota, squeezes Zach Finney, but trying to get on the power now. A drift from the Ferrari, loses the rear, spins around and around into circles, hits the wall, holds onto his wing at least, and there's enough of a gap between him and Scotty. What a way to finish a race, by the way. Enough of a gap between him and Scotty where he safely comes home P2. I believe that's the race done. Let's have a look at Zach Finney if he's slowing down.
Yeah, he is indeed. He has to a halt. So Zach Finney wins round 6 of the Sim Hound LMU 100 series, just is able to kick out the grass of Alfie Bevan, who really tried everything in the last second to go around the outside of Parabolica, but couldn't do enough. It's going to be another third position for Angela Scott, who locks it up coming into the Parabolica, applies the power now, and will exit the final corner to secure their third, fourth position of the season. Consistency really key with this driver, and a great result there for Angela as they come across the line. It'll be Nick Manders who will be coming home in about 8 seconds time in fourth position, but here it comes. It is between Christian Giesing and Johnny Ashley for the final podium position. Will Giesing be able to steal away from Ashley as they come down the back straight now? He's right tucked in behind that big boy BMW is the Porsche. He's going to have to try and find a big gap past that big car though, and he's going to try and send it around the outside of the Parabolica. Johnny Ashley's aware of it. He squeezes the front end of the Porsche to the outside of the second. The Porsche's got a better momentum, but he's able to get alongside, but if he is Johnny has that tight line. In the end, Johnny Ashley is going to be able to bring it home in third position here and takes third in a great drive from Johnny Ashley. A good recovery in the end by Christian Giesing to come home in fourth in the LMPT3 class. It does mean that Yaroshenko has come home in second as well, and Atal Baskar has won here today in the BMW in LMGT3. The Proton competition car of Botolson comes across the line as well, and I believe that's potentially one of the last cars to come across the line. I think we're still waiting for Tim Bob, maybe?
No, I think that's
that's it.
I think. Well, let's see if the results have come through. No, just waiting for them to finish. Yeah, what a great race. Fantastic stuff. Right to the end there was obviously the battle between Bevan and Finney, trying to hold it around the outside, obviously losing the race. Spins it round, as we saw. Luckily didn't pick up any retirement-worthy damage and limped to the end there. And again, obviously, Kiesig's recovery up to fourth, by the way. So great job from them. I'll see if the results have come through. Nope. Was that everything a wet Monza you expected it to be, Tom?
Yeah, I think it was a good show in the end. Really excitement between the leader and Alfie Bevans around the final corner there, just to really kind of set us up for a grandstand finish. Alfie really chucked everything at that, had one opportunity and nearly got it done, but just kind of spun the rears up on, I think, on that green kind of strip on the outside of the circuit. But yeah, obviously as well, we saw Kiesik coming through the field after their kind of mistake from leading this race. And yeah, obviously some great battling between Zach Silver and Charlie Morgan as well, and that brief battle between Zach Silver and Nick Manders as well. Really, really just great battling throughout this event. Some action as well. Big turn one off, took out a lot of our main drivers as well. And yeah, it was so much to watch. And actually, I think this might be the crash down.
No, this is well, yeah, it is, but this is also the start of the race. Just I saw a comment about how difficult it was to see at the beginning of the race, just to give everyone an idea. Obviously, we did watch onboard for a little while as the game server ends. Excellent stuff. We didn't quite catch that then. That's a shame.
But that's obviously where the damage came from for Christian Kiesig, because he collected, I think that was the Alpine of Jacob Hine with that left front of their car. And
Of
obviously
course.
that's where the race came a little bit undone for Christian Kiesig.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Yeah. So the results haven't come through, but I think I've got this instead. Let's have a little look if this works. Yes, perfect. There we go. So we can see the finishing order for the hypercar. Obviously, Zach Finney we saw in that Toyota just get ahead, just finish the line ahead of Alfie Bevan at the end of the race. Angela Scotti, great race from them as well, up to third. Obviously moving up. Oh, sorry, down one position from the start of the race, but either way, great result. Nick Mann is moving up 2 positions, across the line with I think 0.4% for energy. So great job from them as well to get it home with that strategy. Zach Silver 5th. We saw plenty of them along with Charlie Morgan, along with them on in P6. Another Porsche of Runa Potovson just ahead of another Porsche of Max Savchuk for 8th. The Peugeot of the recovering James Cowley 9th. Jacob Hine in the whiny Alpine. There's no other word to describe it, to be honest. It's a great sounding thing. 10th, and Ben Shawley DNFing as well, obviously 11th. And let's look at the GT3 field, shall we?
Yeah, so Atal Baskar finished it in first, really, since Christian Kiesig's kind of off and that little bit of contact with Jacob Hine controlled the race. Then one about just down the order from that is Dmitro Yaroshenko in the 296 in his Ferrari. Then a great drive by Johnny Ashley ends up in third with that alternate 2-stop strategy. Took the stops quite close together, as he only just defended off Christian Kiesig, who comes home in 4th. Then Ralph Fest says it's the best the car's felt all season, comes home in 5th position after a great run here at a wet Monza. Then 6th is Mateus Fusken. Then down in 7th is the first of the Ford Mustangs of Greg Prescott. Then you've got the current JCW World Tour leader of the AC Championship, Tim Bob, in 8th position. Then 9th position goes to Dave Schlecki, who seems to be struggling a little bit today in these wet weather conditions and had a few offs. Then 10th goes away of Anton Semenga, had DNF'd in the end after an off at Ascari and a 10-second penalty in this race. Then Alex Parkin also DNFing as we saw him go off at Ascari frontwards into the outside wall. Richard Massan spun to the inside of Ascari, which ended their race. And Petr Jelinek we lost in that Turn 1 incident.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so interesting race. The spray was surprising. Even as a fellow driver, we understand spray is incredibly difficult, but even more so it seemed then. Obviously, with the sun, the glare coming through, it made visibility quite a challenge, to be honest. At least I imagine it did. It did from our perspective as well, to be honest.
Yeah, and from our perspective, it reminded me of like a smoke bomb in COD or Rainbow. that's what it was like. You just couldn't see anything.
Yeah, exactly. So that was Monza, a wet Monza, the last rain of the series, in brackets, unfortunately. But next week, we are back at Spa, a classic track, a fantastic track, an interesting track. Lots of elevation, obviously lots of difficulty, long circuit, lots of challenges there, no rain at least, but will certainly be an interesting battle. Another one for strategy, because it's such a long track, you want to absolutely nail your strategy, because if you get it slightly wrong, you're going to be limping around the circuit as slow as you can to conserve your fuel or virtual energy whilst getting back to the long pit lane, obviously, and topping that up. And then finally, we finish the series off at Sebring in a couple of weeks' time. So do obviously catch us next week, catch us for the finale. In between now and then, though, obviously we have plenty of other racing. We've got the GT3 Festival tomorrow, some more LMU. We've got some AC, I believe, on a Tuesday. Wednesday is the Academy Series, so some more LMU for some newer drivers, getting used to the series, getting used to the format, getting used to the game, etc. Thursday, I believe we've got some fantastic iRacing. And again, obviously, next Sunday, we're back with me and maybe Tom. Not Tom. For another round of the 100 series. But, thank you everyone for joining us in chat. Thank you for the banter. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for racing with us. But unless, Tom, you have anything else?
No, that's. I think you said everything.
Yeah, indeed. Well, thank you everyone, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.